Chapter 1237. So many corpses were piled high, and there were thousands of them. Every one of them was an elite disciple of the Stargate sect. Now no one was an exception. All of them had died here. Their lives and souls had been sacrificed to the Star Monarch. If not, how would they have the chance to pry open the cracks in the heavenly Tao layout? How would they have the chance to gamble? If the Dragon's Snatching Pulse Star Alliance's plan succeeded, all of them would be able to become true Tao integration stage cultivators instantly. They might even be able to go one step further. This was because the power of these sacrifices would be fed back together with the immense power of Providence. But if they didn't succeed, the 15 of them would have to drag their bodies, which were even weaker than ordinary core martial artists, and escape. Furthermore, they would never be able to recover their cultivation base for the rest of their lives. The Stargate sect's plan this time could be said to be cutting off all means of retreat. However, this plan was the ultimate mission of the various Stargate sects. It was their ultimate goal. When the demon race left with the continent, they used all their means to make the Stargate sect stay. They even changed their identities and became a member of the Umno Alliance. They were under the command of the Umno Alliance, that the Wu people suffered heavy casualties at that time, even more than the demon race. At the most critical moment, countless experts from the 15 Stargate sects self-detonated one after another. This could be said to have contributed greatly to the Wu people. It was also the cornerstone of the Wu people's lead over the Tao League and the Astral Souls, that if not for this, the Wu people wouldn't have acknowledged the existence of the 15 Stargate sect. Even when they knew that they were up to something, they still couldn't take action against them. They even had to prevent the Astral Souls and the Tao League from targeting them. It was because of the kindness they had shown them in the past that they didn't kill them. Of course, the Wu people allowed them to pass on their legacies. At the same time, they didn't sit back and watch them grow. Otherwise, the Stargate sect wouldn't only be as powerful as they were today. They would only be able to set up traps and take advantage of the situation. Now the day had finally arrived. They would fight against the heavens, against the 3 continents, and against the talents of this world. The most fortunate thing was that the star battle layout for the 15 Stargates had finally been completed. The 15 sect leaders felt their weak bodies. When they opened their eyes, they saw the countless corpses of their disciples. Their hearts were filled with indescribable pain. They did not dare to open their eyes again. They could not bear to see this scene of hell on earth. Even though they had long been prepared for this. Even though they knew that this day would come, and felt that they had long been heartless. But when it really came to this point, that heartbreak was still hard to restrain. There was no way to suppress it. However, they were still sitting on their star positions, using their souls to stabilize the star array. Definitely, you must succeed. The 15 of them were screaming in their hearts as they prayed with all their might. The sacrifice was too great. The power of the stars and star lords had already been injected into the dragons, seizing meridian formation. There would be 15 Tao integration stage powerful beings inside to deal with Zuoshaoduo and the others. 15 Tao integration pinnacle stage cultivators. This level of cultivation had already surpassed the upper limit of the rules of the Dragon's Snatching Pulse. This was because the participants of the Dragon's Snatching Pulse had to be below the Tao integration stage. However, the star battle layout used the immense power of the stars to forcefully pry open the gaps and inject copious amounts of elemental energy. This caused the 15 people who were not Tao integration stage to be forcefully elevated to the Tao integration stage under the Star Lord's combination. Among these 15 people, some were not even fairy realm cultivators when they entered. This was to use the power that surpassed the rules to deal with those who were within the rules. Otherwise, how could there be any planning? In such a situation where the strong were bullying the weak, and the strong were suppressing the weak, how could they not win? Hence, this round was very stable. That outside Shangjing City, in the white cloudgrass hut, Mr. Bai was calmly packing his things. Although he said he was packing, most of his things were actually untouched. The furnishings in the room were as usual. He walked out of the grass hut in his white robe. A few children bowed respectfully. Mr. Alright, you guys take good care of the house. I'm going to travel in the mountains. I'll be back in 3 to 5 days, or 5 to 7 days. Yes, mister. Bai Yenting going out to travel had long become a habit. Basically, he would go out once in a while. However, every time he went out, he would instruct the children like this. They were also used to it, and it had become a habit. If someone comes to look for me, Bai Yenting asked with a smile. Yes, mister. You'll be back in 3 to 5 days or 5 to 7 days. If you have any requests, you can leave a brocade pouch. If you're free, you can wait here for a few days. You can come back after 5 to 7 days. The children replied obediently. All right. Not bad. Bai Yenting laughed heartily. He looked very carefree. Then he took out some delicious food, fun things, and some resources for cultivation. He also took out a few bottles of elixirs. He reminded them earnestly, don't be naughty at home. Remember to cultivate well. Do you understand? In the future, you must be someone useful to the continent. Thank you, mister. We'll remember. The children were filled with gratitude. The elixirs are used to strengthen the body. Give some to Uncle Lee and the others. Don't take all of it. Bai Yenting smiled very kindly. His face was full of joy. Don't worry, mister. I won't. Yes, after I left, I've already placed the incense in my room. On the first day, I'll light the first batch. On the second day, I'll light the second batch. What about the third day? Bai Yenting asked with a smile. I'll light the third batch. The children replied excitedly. Yes, correct. When will it be? Noon. Ha, good. Obedient. Bai Yenting laughed loudly. His body floated up like a white cloud and flew off into the distance. When he was far away, he turned around and saw that the boys were still staring at him. He smiled and waved his hand. Then, his body disappeared into the clouds like a white cloud and disappeared. Mr. is really something. Every time he leaves for a few days, he has to joke with us like this. Who wouldn't remember such a small thing? A boy said with a smile. It's rare for Mr. to treat us so well. You're still not satisfied. I know, but we're not children anymore. Tisk, you're not a child. Take off your pants and let me see. Do you have hair? Don't come over. After a short while, the children were already in a mess. They were laughing and chatting happily. It was peaceful. On the first day of Bai Yenting's departure, at noon, the first batch of incense was lit by the child. On the second day of Bai Yenting's departure, the second batch of incense was lit by the child. On the third day of Bai Yenting's departure, the third batch of incense was lit by the child. Just like that, an hour later, there was suddenly a burst of thick smoke. The children were surprised and did not know where the change came from. Suddenly, there was a landslide and a flame that shot into the sky. It was a volcano that erupted without warning. It erupted from the Bai Yenting's room and shot into the sky. Once it erupted, it was a terrifying sign of extinction. On the mountain where the Bai Yenting grass hut was located, no one survived, be it humans or animals. The children were the first to bear the brunt, and had long been turned into charcoal. The scorching hot magma, mixed with the extremely powerful eruption force, shot up more than 2,000 meters into the sky, and penetrated the clouds formed by the power of the 9 heavenly daos. It continued to erupt and rush up. A gap was formed in the thick dark clouds in the sky. It was not until the volcano stopped erupting after an hour that the gap closed again. However, after this change, another inexplicable force took action that the mysteries of the heavens were disturbed again. The original path of the mysteries of the heavens was returned to chaos and could no longer be traced. On the other side of the horizon was the interior of the Umno Alliance. Bai Yenting, who was dressed in white and looked like an immortal, stood at the peak of the mountain and sighed softly. I'm really sorry. You are all my good children. It's a pity. I'm not blessed. Before he finished speaking, he had already floated down from the peak of the mountain and was heading towards the interior, towards the location of the flood palace. After a moment of dizziness, Zhuo, who had quickly regained his consciousness, opened his eyes immediately. He realized that he was already standing on top of a mountain, and in front of him stood a young man. The young man opposite him was tall and straight. He was dressed in white, and had the school emblem of the ancestral Dragon High School pinned on it. At this moment, his eyes were bright, and his hands were behind his back. He had a graceful bearing, and was sizing up Swishaoduo with a faint smile. Between the two of them, the chi meridian surged and circulated. A golden luck dragon that had already taken shape, and had a color was surging up from the ground. The golden dragon turned its head, and saw Swishaoduo at first glance. Then, it shook its head and wagged its tail, intending to head towards Swishaoduo. Obviously, although this aura dragon did not have the intelligence of a divine sense, it would still instinctively choose to attach itself to the person with the strongest aura. However, before the aura dragon could move, the young man in white on the opposite mountain suddenly raised his hand. A ray of starlight rushed out, and suppressed the aura dragon to the point that it could not move. The young man's figure slowly floated up in the air. He said indifferently, "Swishaoduo, the son of the minister, you are indeed extraordinary and full of aura. I didn't expect to meet you here. I wonder if you know who I am, young Master Zhua?" Swishaoduo frowned. "Myriad Waters Mountain? Haha. Yes and no. I am Myriad Waters Mountain, but I am no longer the Myriad Waters Mountain of the past." The young man put his hands behind his back and said arrogantly, "Starlight has entered my body, and the Lord of Stars has entered my body. I am already the chosen one. Although killing the son of the minister will cause endless trouble in the future, it is still a great opportunity to kill you here. After all, everyone wants to walk to the end and embark on the great Tao. Since the Lord of Stars has chosen me, I am naturally the chosen one who is blessed by the heavens. Swishaoduo, young Master Zhua, your luck is really not that good." Wan Shuishan's face was full of smiles, but his words were a declaration that Swishaoduo was about to die. Swishaoduo ignored Wan Shuishan's provocation and flipped through the heavenly secret order. He instantly understood. Wan Shuishan was a genius student of the ancestral dragon martial arts school. He was born in the Astral Souls continent. He was naturally intelligent and unruly. In the ancestral dragon martial arts school, he had always considered himself the #1 genius in the continent. He was arrogant and looked down on everyone else. However, it was also because of this that he looked down on Swishaoduo. He thought that Swishaoduo was only able to receive such preferential treatment because of his father's status. So what if his cultivation speed is fast? Isn't it just because he has a good father? If my father is the sky inspecting minister, I will be faster than him. Chapter 1238. In Wan Shuishan's opinion, since his father was the sky inspecting minister, what was so strange about Swishaoduo's current achievements? It was just a deformed product of countless high-quality resources. Who knew how many resources these rich and powerful second-generation officials had snatched away from us? It was probably because of this that this kind of personality, as well as the envy, jealousy, and hatred towards Swishaoduo deep in his heart, caused this genius student, who Ancestral Gragon was proud of, to develop an indescribable hatred towards Swishaoduo in his heart. Therefore, when the Celestial Lord descended, he was naturally chosen when there were not enough people in the Stargate sect. And this opportunity was tantamount to a windfall for Wan Shuishan. His cultivation level was only at the early stage of the profound returning realm. How could he dare to fight against Swishaoduo? However, with the possession of the Celestial Lord, he had the power of the Tao integration stage. What kind of concept was this? This was clearly the heavens helping him defeat Swishaoduo, showing that he was the chosen one. This was the true gift of the heavens. In today's society, all kinds of novels were emerging endlessly. There were portable grandpas, portable treasures, and so on. Everyone had already read a lot of them. It was almost as if they were everywhere. At this moment, to Wan Shuishan, this was his cheat. He had ascended to the throne of the Son of Providence in one fell swoop. From now on, he would be the main character. All the beauties in this world, all the treasures in this world, they were all his. They were all his. How could there be anything else to say? Who would have thought that a Celestial Lord's power could be so powerful? He even had so many Dharma spells and such profound divine abilities. Please possess me, Celestial Lord, and kill Swishaoduo. Wan Shuishan bowed respectfully to the sky. Before he finished speaking, a burst of starlight flashed, and Wan Shuishan's aura instantly changed. It was thick and magnificent, as if he was with the heavens. He was a completely different person from before. Swishaoduo, kill yourself. I'll leave you with an intact corpse. Swishaoduo coughed and said, I haven't asked, which of the celestial lords are you? Wan Shuaishan said, I'm the Great Gate Celestial Lord. Swishaoduo said indifferently, the Great Gate Celestial Lord. Ancient times, heavenly jade, the second star of the Big Dipper, the dark star. As expected, the moment the Great Celestial Lord appeared, there was life and death, right and wrong. The ancients did not lie. The Great Celestial Lord said, You are quite knowledgeable. Since you know of this Star Lord's reputation, why don't you just kill yourself? Do you want this Star Lord to do it personally? At that time, you Celestial Lord blamed Celestial Lord. Lord, Celestial Lord, Celestial Lord. Zhuoxiaoduo's face was filled with helplessness as he said faintly, I'm a person who won't shed tears until I see the coffin. If I hurt myself, it will inevitably be more painful than a normal fight. I'll have to trouble Star Monarch to do it personally. Don't worry, I'm a very open-minded person. Celestial, 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 Celestial. Celestial, Celestial, Celestial. Celestial, Celestial. As the Great Gate Star Monarch spoke, he pulled out Myriad Water's mountain sword. Zhuoxiaoduo clenched his fists and put on an authentic posture that only a grandmaster of a generation could put on. His feet were abnormally heavy, and his entire body was like a lofty mountain. He said seriously, perhaps Taibai Jingxing does not know, but I am known as the Iron Fist Young Master. Today, I will use this pair of fists to experience the power of an ancient legendary figure. You want to fight me with your bare hands? I really don't know who gave you the courage. The Great Gate Star Sovereign didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After being away from the world for so many years, were the youngsters nowadays all so arrogant? You're only a Sky Soar Realm cultivator, yet you dare to challenge me with your bare hands? What guts you have? Good. I will experience the Iron Fist Young Master's Iron Fist. The Great Gate Star Sovereign held his sword with one hand and placed the other behind his back. He said casually, Since you are a junior, I will allow you to make the first move. Even if it is a battle of life and death, I will allow you to make 3 moves first. He showed the demeanor of an expert and made it clear that he would allow him to make 3 moves first. This was probably the demeanor of a true pinnacle expert, at least in the Great Gate Star Sovereign's opinion, although he hadn't recovered to the level of a Zenith Heavenly Immortal at his peak, and could only unleash the power of a Dao integration stage cultivator. With this kid's shallow strength, even if he stood there and let him hit him, he wouldn't be able to touch him at all. Since that was the case, he naturally had to maintain the demeanor of a senior. What was the point of letting him make 3 moves first? 3 moves first? You want to let me make 3 moves first? Zhuoxiaoduo shook his head. No, how can that be? We are enemies and this is a fair battle. There is no need to talk about letting me make a move first. However, the Great Gate Star Sovereign had clearly said that he would let him make a move first. With his status, how could he go back on his words? Did he still want to maintain the demeanor of a senior? I said that I would let you make 3 moves first, so I will let you make 3 moves first. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was displeased. Do you think I am someone who would go back on my words? Zhuoxiaoduo said. Are you really going to stand there and let me make 3 moves first? That would be too much of an advantage for you. How can there be such a logic in this world? Even if you are a senior expert, you can't look down on me like this, right? The Great Gate Star Sovereign was stunned. Stand there and let him make 3 moves first? Did I say something like that? When did I say that? However, I am the Great Gate Star Sovereign of the ancient heavenly court. Do you know how high my reputation is? Although he was only a Dao integration stage cultivator, a pinnacle Dao integration stage cultivator was enough to crush all the Astral Souls cultivators in this space without exception. Looking at this kid, Zhuoxiaoduo's expression didn't change, and he tried his best to restrain himself. You are indeed only at the initial Sky Soar realm. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was relieved. He smiled elegantly and said, I have not descended to the mortal world for countless years. Juniors like you don't know how powerful I am. Fine, I will let you make 3 moves first. Consider it as fulfilling your reputation as the Iron Fist young master. Let me see what you are capable of, and whether you live up to your reputation. The meaning behind his words was clear. You are only allowed to use your fists. Otherwise, don't blame me for going back on my words. The Great Gate Star Sovereign was obviously being careful. Although you claim to be best at fists, how powerful can you be with your bare hands? You can't hurt me even if you die of exhaustion. But if he could use weapons, what if this brat had some kind of divine weapon in his hands? This kid is the son of some Sky Patrol minister. With my current weak body, I may not be able to withstand his attacks. So if you use weapons, don't blame me for being ruthless. After hearing this, Swordsmanship was so regretful that he wanted to bang his head against the wall. This idiot actually agreed. If he had known, he would have just told the truth. He would have said that he was best at using hammers. If he used hammers directly, would he need 3 hammers? 1 hammer would be enough to turn a watermelon into mush. However, he did not know that if he had said that he was good at using hammers from the start, the Great Gate Star Sovereign would not have agreed to let him make 3 moves. Perhaps some people would say that the Great Gate Star Sovereign was stupid, but for a Grand Heavenly Realm expert, who had been high up for a long time to meet an ant with a cultivation as shallow as paper like Swordsmanship, that it was normal for him to look down on someone high up. It was just a game of cat and mouse. Great Gate Star Junyuan stood tall with his hands behind his back. He stood confidently on the ground and said indifferently, "Although you will die today, you are still a genius of your generation. After you die, I will think of a way to prevent your soul from disappearing. When you reincarnate again, come to my demon race. Perhaps we will meet again at that time." This was the Great Gate Star Sovereign's true goal. With his current cultivation, he could not forcibly detain Swordsmanship. However, if Swordsmanship was willing, there would be no problem. The Great Gate Star Monarch could tell at a glance that this guy's body was much stronger than the brat he possessed. Moreover, the power of Providence was indescribably strong. As long as his true spirit was not destroyed, and he was reincarnated, he would still be a shocking genius. This kind of thing could only be encountered by chance. Swordsmanship did a chest expansion exercise and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Star Sovereign." The Great Gate Star Sovereign said, "You agree? This is a good thing. For us cultivators, the path of the Great Tao is the most important. Everything else is trivial. When death is imminent, there is still a chance. How can I not agree?" Swordsmanship said with a smile, "Star Sovereign is famous. I will do my best to test Senior's bottom line." The Great Gate Star Sovereign said indifferently, "That's how it should be." Swordsmanship roared and clenched his fists. His already extraordinary aura increased by 3 points. Amidst the dense fog, the Great Gate Star Sovereign was attached to the myriad water mountain. He stood with his hands behind his back and did not move. His aura was solemn like a mountain. His clothes fluttered, and his hair danced in the wind. He was truly elegant, and was not deliberately pretending. On the other hand, Swordsmanship was pretending to circulate his chi, as if he was trying his best to mobilize and gather all his cultivation. "I'm coming," Swordsmanship roared. Before he finished speaking, he had already leaped up. The first to move was a heavenly secret order targeted at the Great Gate Star Sovereign. It silently flew away. The content of the order, Bloody Calamity, Fallen Soul. The Great Gate Star Sovereign smiled faintly. His indifferent eyes swept across Swordsmanship's figure with disdain, as if he was looking at an insignificant ant. However, Swordsmanship charged over like lightning. He was only 10 steps away from the Great Gate Star Sovereign. For a Skysor realm expert, the distance of 10 steps was almost nothing. However, Swordsmanship's movements were as fast as lightning, forcefully causing a clear sense of hierarchy to appear in the space of 10 steps. He took a step forward, and the spiritual energy in his body boiled. After taking a 3rd step, the Flaming Sun Sutra was fully activated. The surroundings were like the scorching sun in the sky, and the aura was boiling. The Great Gate Star Sovereign smiled faintly. "I knew that you had a fire element cultivation technique. Were you trying your best to hide it as a trump card? But how could a grain of rice emit brilliance?" He stood firmly and spread out his cultivation in an even manner. He could ensure that when Swordsmanship punched him, no matter where he punched, his cultivation would be concentrated in that place. He had already made up his mind to use his shocking cultivation, or at least, to shock the heavenly Tao in this place, to directly injure Zhuo, who said that you couldn't inflict heavy injuries just because you didn't fight back. That's just because your knowledge is shallow. 3 moves. Too many. 1 move was enough. Chapter 1239. Huff Huff. Weng. Zhuo's first step was already accompanied by the howling of the wind. After 3 steps, the space was already buzzing. When Zhuo reached the 5th step, a black hole had already appeared behind him. With a crack, the space was torn apart. In such a short distance, he had already broken through the space and burned it. The flames on his body also grew by another notch. The elemental fire art was surging rapidly. In the next moment, the flames that surged around Zhuo's body suddenly turned purple, incinerating everything in its path. Zhu Rong was really angry. 8 steps. Zhuo punched out. It was mixed with the mournful howl of ghosts. The surrounding heaven and earth seemed to be squeezing together. 2 balls of light, 1 white and 1 black, shot into his fist at the critical moment, and a streak of fiery light shot out from behind his fist. Grand Sun Primordial Fire. On his fist, there was still a glimmer of light. It was the hexagrams of 3 eternal stars stones that had quietly appeared on his fist. Boom! The brazen punch landed squarely on Wan Shuishan, who was possessed by the Great Gate Star Monarch. Zhuo had used all his strength in this punch. His opponent was a Star Monarch. He might even be a powerful character who could fight head-on with his father, Zhuo Chonglu. How could Zhuo dare to underestimate his opponent? It was good that his opponent was underestimating him. It gave him a chance to let him have 3 moves. It would be best if he could take the attack without dodging. All the mystic arts in his body were concentrated on his fist. The flaming sun scripture was burning to the limit. The elemental fire art was operating at full force. Zhu Rong was really angry. There was also Bai and Jiu, who had entered his fist. The hexagrams of the eternal star stones were attached to his fist. There was also Xiao, who was surging with Grand Sun Primordial Fire, who was assisting him from behind the fist. Zhuo had used the maximum power of his own body, and most of his trump cards in this attack. The combined attack was to finish the battle in 1 stroke. The other party was actually willing to stand still and let him hit him. Zhuo felt that if he didn't take advantage of this, then he would be letting down his ancestors. 3 moves? There were too many. 1 move was enough. 1 move was enough. Seeing Zhuo come smashing at him with earth-shattering power, Great Gate Star Monarch maintained a relaxed posture. He calmly observed the changes and did not think anything was wrong. However, when Zhuo took the 8th step and punched out crazily, that he suddenly felt that something was wrong. An extreme sense of danger suddenly rose from the bottom of his heart. It was as if there was something on his opponent's fist that made him feel fear. However, he seemed to have noticed it a little too late. The moment that fist smashed into his chest like a heavenly hammer, that the Great Gate Star Monarch finally remembered what it was. That was Zhu Rong's true fire. Zhu Wu's true fire. That year, Zhu Rong's true fire had sent him flying 300 miles with a single punch and crippled him. It was actually Zhu Rong's true fire. He did not dodge. Instead, he faced Zhu Rong's true fire head-on. However, he remembered it too late. The meaning of it being late was, it was over. Boom. Zhuo's fist, which contained many trump cards, was unprecedentedly intimate with the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. It was a crazy collision. Zhu Rong's true fire merged into the primordial fire, and the flaming sun primordial fire. The 3 flames merged into one and forcefully merged into the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. Amidst the miserable screams that were filled with endless regret, like a hot knife through butter, it broke through the Great Gate Star Monarch's defense without any resistance. This gap was enough for Bai and Jiu to squeeze in. At the same time, the 3 starry sky eternal stone hexagrams borrowed the strength of Zhuo's punch and smashed into the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. The starry sky indestructible stone hexagram was a special hidden weapon that was completely different from most hidden weapons. Most hidden weapons required a certain distance to be effective, and they needed to be fast. It was best if they were faster than one could imagine. However, once the hidden weapon lost its distance, it would often become a useless weapon. After all, in a battle between experts, it was hard to avoid close contact. They could almost touch each other with their hands. At such a distance, no matter how amazing the hidden weapon was, it would be difficult to use it. However, the Starry Sky Eternal Stone hexagrams were different in that they were sturdy and indestructible. Furthermore, in such a special situation, they could directly embed themselves into the target's body without any distance. They could even further display their unique effects. Then there was the fourth flame that Xiao had brought. The fierce flaming sun primordial fire followed closely behind. It also used this gap to burrow into the Great Gate Star Monarch's chest. In the blink of an eye, an extremely strange force field suddenly erupted from the two of them. The Great Gate Star Monarch's expression changed. His body was sent flying by Zhuoxiaoduo like a cannonball. Flames roared out of his chest. 4 colored flames. 4 different types of flames that were even more elegant than the others. His entire body became a giant burning candle. His heart was directly smashed by the Starry Sky Eternal Stone hexagrams. The Great Gate Star Monarch spat out a mouthful of heart blood mixed with the crazy burning flames. His eyes bulged as he cursed angrily. Despicable. At the same time, there was extreme regret. Judging from the combat strength that the other party had displayed, the other party was even stronger than his current cultivation. The other party had actually shamelessly made him stand straight and take a beating. He had actually given him 3 moves. How shameless. I've been tricked. The Great Gate Star Monarch's roar was heart-wrenching. However, the counterforce caused by the Great Gate Star Monarch still sent the unsuspecting Zhuoxiaoduo flying 17 meters away. However, this result was within Zhuoxiaoduo's expectations. He had already turned around in midair and had already taken out 2 huge cat hammers. The moment the 2 hammers appeared, the space shook. Buzz! One hammered the sky, the other hammered the earth. The first move brought along yin-yang, sun, moon, mountain, river, heaven and earth. In a turn, it was as if he had teleported to the front of the Great Gate Star Monarch, who was still retreating. Bang! Don't dodge. With a twist of his waist, a huge hammer that carried the power of the heaven and earth, sun, moon, mountain, river, yin-yang, and Star Monarch smashed down. He didn't forget to shout. This is the second move you let me use. Don't go back on your word. Under his first punch, the Great Gate Star Monarch had already suffered a great loss. His body was basically crippled, and there was a big hole in his chest, revealing that his internal organs had all been turned into mush, and they were still being burned by the 4-colored flames. A 3-legged golden crow flew back and forth in his chest, and 2 balls of light, one white and one black, were wantonly eating away at him. The 3 Starry Sky indestructible stones flowed rapidly and forcefully blocked the soul power, preventing the Great Gate Star Monarch's soul power from leaving his body. The Great Gate Star Monarch had never imagined that this kid would be so sneaky. His so-called first punch was at least equivalent to 5 moves from other people. 5 ultimate moves, the ultimate killing moves. What he didn't expect even more was how this kid was so strong. In the memories of his host's body, shouldn't the person in front of him be a deformed seed, who had been piled up by countless heaven and earth treasures because of his excellent background? How could he be so strong? A second-generation official, a trash who used his background to rob other ordinary students of their resources? What the fuck? How could this be? What's more, this kid was facing the opponent he feared the most, the Zhu Rong True Fire that could perfectly suppress him. It wasn't just the Zhu Rong True Fire. There were 3 other kinds of equally violent and blazing flames that targeted him both inside and outside of his home. The soul that belonged to Wan Shuishan, the soul of the protagonist of Destiny, that had just been cheated had already dissipated at the first moment. Not even a tiny fragment was left behind. Clang! 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 The Great Gate Star Monarch's entire body turned into a burning torch that soared into the sky. He desperately waved his long sword and engaged in a fierce confrontation with Zhuoxiaoduo's 99 cat hammer. Despicable! 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 The Great Gate Star Monarch was really mad at this time. On one hand, he cursed Zhuoxiaoduo for being despicable. On the other hand, he cursed Wan Shuaishan for being despicable. These little guys were all classmates. But how could this Wan Shuaishan have such a misconception? Just this first punch was enough to announce his death. He had suffered a crushing defeat, with no room for maneuver. Who would have thought that this kid actually had the tyrannical strength to fight him head-on? Yet such a strong person still wanted to play small, and play tricks to make him stand still, and let him make 3 moves. It would have been fine if that was all, but he even thought of a way to play dirty. Originally, even if he failed to descend, at least 30% of his soul power could return. However, this kid actually used the Starry Sky Eternal Stone to lock onto his soul. Wasn't this Starry Sky Eternal Stone only owned by the imperial family of the Heavenly Court? How could it fall into the hands of a mere human? If he hadn't already confirmed that this was a trap set up by his family, and that it was a trap that was purely beneficial to his family, the Great Gate Star Monarch would have suspected that this was a trap set up by the human race to lure him and the others into it. Then, when he was not in his best state, he would be ambushed. The current situation clearly showed that he was the one being ambushed. The next moment, the Great Gate Star Monarch lowered his head and realized to his horror that it was the 3-legged golden crow that was rushing around in his body. Ah! The Great Gate Star Monarch's eyes widened as he screamed in disbelief. Clang! Clang! After 2 hammers, the longsword in the Great Gate Star Monarch's hand broke into pieces. At this moment, the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer had been pushed to the peak by Zuoshaoduo. He didn't hold back at all, and smashed down like a storm, that it smashed into the burning flames that soared into the sky. This was the Great Gate Star Monarch. Who knew how many tricks he had? He had to take his life while he was sick, and end this battle in the shortest time possible. Zuoshaoduo didn't dare to be careless at all. He smashed out 1,300 hammers in one go. He was completely smelting the Great Gate Star Monarch, like steel, that the last few dozen hammers simply smashed into the air. The body of the Great Gate Star Monarch, which was attached to the Myriad Water Mountain, had long been smashed into the air. Not even powder was left. Chapter 1240. The Great Gate Star Sovereign's body was smashed into pieces, and even the air was still being burned by Zhu Rong's true fire, and the other 4 flames, that at the last moment that the last hammer fell, and a ball of brilliant starlight scattered in all directions like an explosion. The whole space was full of specks of starlight, scattered all over the sky, like a large group of fireflies dancing in the night sky. In a moment, an illusory figure gradually took shape in the starlight. With a complicated expression, he glanced at Zuoshaoduo, and then looked at the 3-legged golden crow Shao, who was flying happily in the air. There was an indescribable bitterness on his face. He seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say it. The starlight had already dissipated, and the figure had completely disappeared, as if there was no trace. The starlight had completely dissipated. The Great Gate Star Sovereign had fallen. Above the clouds, on the other side of the distant starry sky, the Great Gate Star, which was flickering crazily, suddenly dimmed after releasing extreme brilliance. More than 90% of its luster disappeared, and then it was completely hidden in the night sky, as if it didn't exist. On the continent of the Demon Clan floating in the distant starry sky, in the hall of the Great Gate Star Sovereign, the Great Gate Star Sovereign, who was meditating cross-legged, suddenly screamed and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. His aura shriveled like a mummy whose water had been sucked out, that his cultivation base continued to slide down. In the slums of Shangjing City, in a hidden courtyard, that the head of the Heavenly Jade sect suddenly screamed and spat out blood continuously. His aura also fell rapidly, his whole body trembled, and his eyes widened. He suddenly screamed, and his eyes were full of disbelief. How could it be? The Great Gate Star Sovereign's avatar has fallen. Before his voice died away, his head tilted, and he fainted weakly. Although he had fainted, his body was still trembling, and he kept spitting out blood. Blood was also flowing out of his 7 orifices, which was extremely terrifying. On the other hand, Granny Greedy Wolf and the others all had tragic expressions on their faces. However, no one moved from the beginning to the end. The star formation was still going on. They couldn't move yet. However, Despair and disbelief had already risen in their eyes. The Great Gate Star Sovereign could also fall. Against these ant-like characters, the Star Lord had actually fallen? How was this possible? That Zhu Rong's true fire was still burning fiercely. It converted the remaining power of the Great Gate Star Sovereign into the power of the true fire. Then it sent the primordial fire to the Flaming Sun Sutra. The Flaming Sun Sutra circulated 9 times in the sky, feeding the primordial fire back to the primordial fire. And the primordial fire fed the Zhu Rong's true fire back, that the 3 flames became more and more harmonious, gradually merging into one. When all the power was converted into the Zhu Rong primordial fire, it would be several times more powerful. On the other hand, Bai and Jiao devoured the soul fragments of the Great Gate Star Lord and the 10,000 Rivers Mountain without wasting a single bit. With this benefit, the bodies of the 2 little beasts became twice as solid as before, and the body of the gourd no longer looked as delicate as before. Then, 2 drops of Providence points fell from the sky and landed between Zhuoxiaoduo's eyebrows. His entire body instantly felt refreshed, and his essence qi also surged out of nowhere, increasing by quite a bit. And this was the Providence points brought about by the fulfillment of the 10,000 Rivers Mountains heavenly secret order. Just as Zhuoxiaoduo was feeling extremely good and felt that this was the happiest thing in life, suddenly, a large number of Providence points fell down. This is 700 drops. Zhuoxiaoduo exclaimed in disbelief, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. These were the Providence points given back after the Great Gate Star Lord's heavenly secret order came true. But Zhuoxiaoduo had never thought that there would be so many Providence points given back. But thinking about it, it seemed to make sense. After all, this was the heavenly jade planet, the Great Gate Star Lord, a legend of a generation, a super expert. He had directly smashed his soul into smithereens. 700 luck points was still acceptable. The power of such a huge amount of Providence points strongly nourished Zhuoxiaoduo's soul, divine sense, divine thought cultivation, Dantian body meridians, bloodline. His meridians, which were already far more flexible than ordinary cultivators, suddenly received a huge boost. The width of his meridians also reached a new peak. The heavenly spirit gushing spring circulation was like a fast lane, and it was unimaginably wide. As the saying went, a sore on the top of the head and pus on the soles of the feet. Although Zhuoxiaoduo did not have any sore or pus, his entire body was now opened. Of course, if one wanted to talk about how bad it was barely enough to say that. Zhuoxiaoduo's cultivation had also soared to the peak of the Skysoar realm, and he suppressed it 9 times. Originally, during this period of time, Zhuoxiaoduo's cultivation had already reached the peak of the Skysoar realm, and he had begun to suppress his true yuan. However, the amount of spiritual energy required for a Skysoar realm cultivator to advance further was too huge. Zhuoxiaoduo and the others had cultivated for more than 10 days in the Tower of Annihilation for more than 5 years, and each of them had reached the stage of suppressing their true yuan. However, they did not break through the perfect state of suppressing their true yuan, like Zhuoxiaoduo had expected. This result and the current situation made everyone unhappy. One could imagine that if Zhuo Zhonglu and the others were to find out about their dissatisfaction, they would definitely give those fellows a good beating. After all, even the most talented of geniuses would need at least a few decades to advance from the initial stage to the peak stage of the Skysoar realm. Depending on the aptitude, it was normal for many people to need hundreds or even thousands of years of accumulation. You have only cultivated for a few years in the Tower of Annihilation, and it has only been a few days in the outside world. And you still think it's slow? Where is your face? In just a few days, you have advanced from the initial stage to the peak of the Skysoar realm, and even started to suppress your true yuan. Moreover, each of you has suppressed your true yuan several times. What more do you want? What more do you want? Zhuoxiaoduo was so happy that he could not even open his eyes. The benefits were too great. Wasn't this too great? No, how could one time be enough? I must continue to work hard and conquer one more city, and then a few more cities. As a man, he must endure. He must not give up. He must continue to work hard. Xiaoduo was so excited that he could not control himself. If his guess was right this time, there would be 15 celestial monarchs, right? If he could kill all these celestial monarchs one by one, wouldn't it mean that he would be rich in an instant? 15 celestial monarchs, let me calculate. 7 equals 7, 7 equals 49. 15 multiplied by 7. More than 10,000. Xiaoduo let out a strange cry. Oh my god! Hurry up, hurry up! The battle between Xiaoduo and the Great Gate Celestial Monarch was complicated. But in fact, it had only lasted for a short while. From the myriad waters mountain suppressing the golden dragon of providence, to the confrontation between the two sides, to Xiaoduo's ferocious punch, to the chain of two hammers that completely destroyed the Great Gate Celestial Monarch, it had only taken a few dozen breaths of time at most. The golden dragon of luck that emerged from the ground was no longer suppressed by the starlight. It rose up again and charged towards Xiaoduo. It was as if it was trying to get close to Xiaoduo. How could Xiao Long allow the golden dragon of providence to act rashly? Did this coquettish bitch still want to fight for his favor? Therefore, he appeared from the void extinguishing pagoda, caught the golden dragon of providence, opened his mouth, and swallowed it whole. I'll eat you. It was also at this moment that Xiaoduo inexplicably felt that he seemed to have gained something. A foundation of foundation. Good stuff. Xiaoduo laughed and flicked 10 providence points to Xiaolong. Eat, I have a lot of deity now. Xiaoduo, who had just made a windfall, naturally wouldn't be stingy with his rewards for Xiaolong. Moreover, this time, he was snatching providence, so he still had to rely on Xiaolong. Of course, he had to feed his little brother first. Only when he was full would he have the strength and the will to work more intensely. Good fortune had fallen from the sky. Xiaolong was instantly so excited that he couldn't tell north from south. 10 drops. It was actually 10 drops. 10 drops in a single breath. Was he dreaming? Boss is too awesome. Boss, I love you. Xiaolong cheered. What kind of good day is it today? Could it be my lucky day? Not only did I just swallow a complete dragon of providence, but I also received so many drops from boss as a reward. Seeing that the rewards were in his hands, Xiaoduo didn't stay any longer. He had already rushed out. He was going to find his brother. This Great Gate Star Monarch was extremely powerful. If Xiaoduo hadn't tricked him, Xiaoduo estimated that even if he could win in a head-on battle, he would have to exchange at least a few hundred, or even a few thousand moves. It would be difficult to kill an opponent without an extreme battle. One had to know that when he punched him, he was still sent flying by his opponent's protective vital energy. This kind of strength could be said to be terrifying. Now that the Great Gate Star Monarch had suddenly arrived, the other Stargate Star Monarchs would most likely come as well. As for the people on his side, other than Nian Mao, the others, including Li Chenglong, might not be a match for this Great Gate Star Monarch. If the difference in strength between the mini Stargate Star Monarchs was similar, then the students of the Astral Souls, who had entered the situation of a group of dragons fighting for a heritage, would be in great danger. They would easily suffer heavy casualties. He had to speed up and find their traces as soon as possible. He had to defeat them one by one. Yes, he had to defeat them one by one. Xiaoduo estimated that if 2 Stargate Star Monarchs gathered, he would have to turn around and run. He would no longer have the ability to fight. If 3 Stargate Star Monarchs gathered, it would be very difficult for him to even run. Xiaoduo's body flashed as he rushed to help other places. In a land of ice and snow, Xiaonian's Spirit Snatcher sword turned into a sword shadow that covered the sky. Ice Spirit, who was about to reach her peak, controlled the sword and fought with Wang Ziyan in the air. Although Wang Ziyan, who was born of the Wang family's direct bloodline, did not receive the power of the Stargate Star Monarch, he had taken a forbidden pill. A forbidden pill called the Heaven-Defying Pill. It was a super pill that he had obtained from his partner, and the name of this pill was Heaven-Defying Luck. This was the key to all the Wang family's schemes. Chapter 1241. The reason why this forbidden pill was known as Heaven-Defying was because its medicinal strength was too great. Even a Skysoar realm expert wouldn't be able to withstand it, and would immediately explode to death. However, if one was placed in a special environment, such as a group of dragons fighting for a vein, the luck would protect one's body. After eating it, not only would one's body not explode, one's strength would break through countless bottlenecks and reach the upper limit allowed by this space. Furthermore, after consuming the heaven-defying pill, as long as one obtained the approval of the Dragon of Fate after killing the opponent, the energy of the Dragon of Fate would naturally help the host suppress the true yuan within the body. After that, by borrowing the power of the Wang clan's blood sacrifice, the Dragon of Fate would fully transform into the clan's fate. As for Wang Ziyun, after experiencing this and getting married, his first child would receive twice the amount of the Dragon of Fate. Furthermore, it wouldn't be as simple as just doubling it. Coupled with the Wang clan's ancestral vein's power of fate, this child would have the innate talent and foundation to become a first-rate genius from the moment he was born. At the very least, this child's fate wouldn't be inferior to Li Chenglong's current. It could be said that he was blessed by the heavens, and it could also be said that this was an extremely terrifying operation of fate. One must know that Li Chenglong's current fate had been brought by Zhuo Xiaoduo, allowing him to be on par with the upper echelons of the continent, or even surpass them. Of course, even if all of this could be achieved smoothly, there would still be a price to pay. When the child was born, the Dragon of Fate would double in power, and Wang Ziyun would lose the protection of his fate. His body wouldn't be able to withstand the restless true yuan, and he would immediately explode to death. However, the current Wang Ziyun naturally didn't know about this drawback. At that time, he would inevitably become a sacrifice for his clan. On the contrary, he only knew that he had become stronger, and would continue to become stronger until the end of time, that his clan was the clan's greatest hope. As long as he could obtain the approval of the dragons fighting over the veins, he would become the child of destiny in the future. After snatching this vein, he would still have to snatch the second one, the third one, and kill Zhuo Xiaoduo, and take his fate for himself. It had to be said that the Wang clan's wishful thinking was extremely good. If Zhuo Xiaoduo was not so strong, he would definitely die if he encountered the Wang family in this group of dragons fighting for the heritage. With Zhuo Xiaoduo's luck, and the dragon vein luck from the dragons fighting for the dragon vein, it was hard to predict what kind of terrifying genius would emerge from the Wang clan. At the very least, as long as the Wang family's plan succeeded, the Wang family would have at least one of the most talented children. This child's luck would be so strong that it would be even stronger than the current Zhuo Xiaoduo. Just this point alone, for this goal, the Wang clan was willing to give up everything, regardless of the price. This was something that could make them a great clan that surpassed both ancient and modern times. Because of this, the Wang clan had gone completely crazy. Moreover, it had to be said that such a goal was really worth fighting for. It didn't matter even if the upper echelons and participants all died. As long as a genius bloodline was preserved, the future would naturally be many times more glorious than now. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan had already crushed the Wang clan's disciples in terms of strength. Zhuo Xiaoyan didn't even need to do anything. Just her ice spirit sword was enough to completely suppress Wang Ziyun, whose strength had greatly increased. After all, no matter how much his strength increased, Wang Ziyun's strength was still only at the Dao integration pinnacle stage. This was because the pinnacle of the Dao integration pinnacle stage was the limit of the heavenly Dao. It was impossible to surpass this limit. Wang Ziyun was different from the other geniuses possessed by the celestial monarchs. He didn't have much combat experience, nor did he have countless years of accumulation. Zhuo Xiaoyan, on the other hand, was at the pinnacle of the Skysoar realm. Furthermore, she had suppressed this level nearly 20 times. Even if she faced a celestial monarch, she could still defeat him. How could a mere Wang Ziyun compare to him? How could they even be mentioned in the same breath? As Zhuo Xiaoyan continued to circulate her energy, an icy white mist suddenly appeared in her hand. The mist then soared into the air and transformed into a snow-white ice phoenix. With a phoenix cry, the ice phoenix soared into the sky. This was the inheritance that Zhuo Xiaoyan had obtained from the lightning tribulation. Snow Phoenix, Divine Phoenix. Boom! Wang Ziyun's entire body was frozen by the ice phoenix. Immediately after, his chest was pierced by the ice phoenix. His entire body turned into ice shards that scattered between heaven and earth. The ice phoenix opened its mouth and swallowed the power that didn't belong to Wang Ziyun. Then with a phoenix cry, it flew back into Zhuo Xiaoyan's body and disappeared. Following that, a providence dragon suddenly soared into the sky. Zhuo Xiaoyan waved her hand, and the providence dragon disappeared into the palm of her hand. The ice spirit sword flew back with the ice spirit sword. Zhuo Xiaoyan's expression was cold. From the beginning of the battle until now, her expression hadn't changed at all. She flew up directly. She was as cold as the moon and as pure as ice and snow. Then she floated away. The ice spirit sword turned into a ball of ice and snow divine light and followed Zhuo Xiaoyan. Everywhere it passed, there was a world of ice and snow, and it was extremely cold. On the other side, Li Qinglong had already defeated Kong Yunshang and obtained the Providence Dragon. Without any hesitation, he turned around and rushed to another area. Zhen Piapiao had also defeated a student who was only at the peak of the God reigning stage. She didn't kill her opponent either. Instead, she simply took the Providence Dragon and left. Zhou Yunqing's sword aura soared into the sky. Once his sword was drawn, he would never turn back. He sent his opponent flying with a single blow. Then, he took the Providence Dragon and shot off like lightning. When they entered, they had all received Li Qinglong's telepathic message. There had been an unforeseen event in the dragons fighting for the mountain range. If they encountered an opponent who could be defeated quickly, they had to defeat him as quickly as possible. Then they had to help the others immediately. They had to stick together as much as possible. Otherwise, they would be in great danger. Compared to the others, Yu Moyan was more unlucky. He encountered a celestial monarch nearby. He wasn't like Zhuo Xiaoduo, who was good at playing tricks. When he saw that something was wrong, he would detonate his strongest strength and fight head-on. Naturally, he attracted a lot of attention from his opponent. He didn't underestimate him at all, and treated him very seriously. Naturally, he fell into a bitter battle. Zhuo Xiaoduo, who had quickly defeated his opponent, the Great Gate Celestial Monarch, went straight in. He passed through a thick fog and entered another area. At a glance, he saw Duguyener trying her best to wield her sword to fight her opponent. She was engaged in a fierce battle with her opponent. It was obvious that Duguyener was at an absolute disadvantage. Her face was pale, and her clothes were stained with blood. She staggered back and could only put up a desperate struggle to survive. After such a long period of seclusion in the Void Extermination Tower, Duguyener had also reached the peak of the Skysoar realm. However, her foundation was much weaker than the others. Although the difference in cultivation was similar, her true strength was the weakest of the others. Therefore, compared to her current opponent, she was much weaker. If Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't come to her rescue in time, Duguyener would die in a few minutes at most. Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't say anything when he saw this. He first threw a divine secret order over, and then his power flew into the sky and smashed down with his 99 cat hammer. With a clang, the sword in the hand of the young man was smashed and he staggered back. He looked up at Zhuo Xiaoduo and shouted, "I'm the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper, Fu Shan Lu Xiyuanzhen. Who are you?" Zhuo Xiaoduo smashed his hammer and said loudly, "I'm the third Big Dipper, celestial monarch of the Big Dipper. I've heard a lot about you. I'm the divine dragon sword Long Yusheng. Please enlighten me." The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was furious. "Aren't you Zhuo Xiaoduo? What divine dragon sword? What Long Yusheng? Why do you still ask if you know? You're so long-winded." Zhuo Xiaoduo didn't stop at all. He operated the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer with all his strength. His whole body turned into a black and white whirlwind, and his figure disappeared. Duguyener staggered back a few steps and tried to stabilize her body. Seeing the arrival of strong reinforcements, she didn't dare to be negligent. She hurriedly took medicine and healed her injuries. She wanted to recover her battle strength as soon as possible. She held her sword and watched the battle, ready to help at any time. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was furious. "I don't know what your name or title is. I only found out after talking with the kid who possessed my body. But what the other party said was right. You know that I'm Zhuo, but you still want to ask for my name. You're really looking for a conversation. But I can't explain this. Actually, I don't know that he had to hold his breath and fight Zhuo. But the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper was more and more surprised as he fought. With his cultivation, battle strength, and so many years of rich combat experience, plus his superior cultivation, he was actually suppressed by Zhuo. He was powerless to turn the tables. This was simply preposterous. The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper couldn't bear the pressure. He roared, and suddenly starlight appeared in his palm. It immediately turned into a huge starlight sword, facing Zhuo's 99 cat hammer head-on. Boom! 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 Such a head-on collision without any pretense had the power to shake the heavens and the earth. Zhuo was in high spirits as he went all out for the second time. The Flaming Sun Sutra was suddenly activated to its peak. A huge sun suddenly appeared in the sky, burning fiercely and spreading without end. The 99 kitty hammer smashed down like raindrops. As they fought, they burned. When the battle reached its end, starlight suddenly flashed. 3 starry sky indestructible stone hexagrams shot out. Dang dang. Dang! The celestial monarch of the Big Dipper quickly knocked away the hexagrams. He said angrily, "You still have hidden weapons. Despicable." However, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly let out a loud cry. A hexagram silently flew up from the ground and pierced through his shoes, embedding itself into the flesh of the soles of his feet. Following that, it continued to advance upwards, continuing to wreak havoc. Even with the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper's cultivation, he couldn't force it out. He couldn't even stop that strange hidden weapon from continuously corroding his flesh. That this feeling was actually very familiar. That the celestial monarch of the Big Dipper couldn't help but shout, "Starry sky indestructible stone?" Before he finished speaking, Zhuo's 2 sledgehammers suddenly collided in front of him. With a muffled bang, countless needles suddenly shot out of the hammers, exploding like bombs. Chapter 1242. The Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign screamed. He was already at a disadvantage, and he was ambushed by the starry sky indestructible stone. He could no longer dodge the rain of hidden weapons. The first to bear the brunt of the attack was the pair of eyes that were pierced by more than 10 needles. The Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign screamed miserably and waved his sword with all his might, but he could no longer change the reality that he could no longer see. Zhuo and Zhu Rong's true fire suddenly flourished. They surged powerfully and pounced on the Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign's body. The 99 cat hammer executed the 1,000-soul extermination. With lightning speed, they crazily smashed down more than 900 times. After countless muffled collisions, the physical body that the Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign possessed turned into ashes and no longer existed in this world. As a starlight projection appeared on the field, Zhuo continued to attack crazily with his sledgehammer, not giving the other party any chance to turn the tables. Finally, with a sigh, the starlight dissipated. The Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign followed in the footsteps of the Great Gate Star Sovereign. Zhu Rong's true fire began to devour and burn. Bai and Jiu also began to devour the Heavenly Secret Star Sovereign's soul power. With increasing familiarity. First, 2 Providence points fell. Then another 700 drops of Providence points entered his account. Zhuo was so comfortable that his entire body trembled, and he cried out. The Providence dragon on the ground shook its head and wagged its tail as it rushed towards Zhuo. Zhuo waved his hand and slapped the dragon onto Duguyener's body. Zhuo would naturally snatch the providence of others. He would not miss it. However, the providence of his own team and his brother's wife. How could he have the nerve to snatch it? As the providence dragon entered her body, Duguyener's complexion recovered a lot. Zhuo rushed over with an ugly expression. Why didn't you use the heaven-mending stone to recover? Duguyener lowered her head in shame. I can't bear to. Zhuo was speechless. How is it? It's fine. All right, let's split up immediately. You go here, and I'll go here. If you encounter an enemy like this person alone, don't act rashly. We'll attack together. Swordsmanship made the arrangements. I understand. The two of them split up and disappeared into the thick fog. If they worked together, they could only help one person. If they split up, they could help two people. Both of them were very clear on this point. Although Doogie Yinner's strength alone was not enough to fight against a star monarch, if she rushed to help another person who had encountered a star monarch, the two of them could still fight against one. Wanli Xiuqiu felt that her luck was very good. Her opponent was Junon Min, a member of the imperial family. The disparity in strength between the two sides was obvious. Wanli Xiu was confident in her victory, but reality was unpredictable. A streak of starlight flashed, and this royal disciple was shockingly possessed by the legendary Star Lord Vanquisher. Seeing the sudden change in situation, Wanli Xiu became even more vigilant. Especially after knowing the opponent's name, she simply adopted the tactic of fighting steadily and surely. Occasionally, he would directly use the flying force to suppress the opponent, mixed with small and nimble movements to dodge and evade. He rarely met force with force. This stalemate lasted for more than 10 minutes. Although she inevitably fell into a disadvantage, the overall situation was still in a state of ease. And this result almost angered Star Lord Vanquisher to death. He clearly had an earth-shattering power and an aura that surpassed the might of heaven and earth, but he couldn't use it at all here. He had been delayed for so long by this little girl in front of him, but he was completely unable to defeat the enemy. The reason why it was difficult for Star Lord Vanquisher to fully display his combat strength was because the person he had possessed was the human emperor's bloodline of the astral souls. It was probably because the demon clan's continent had been separated from the astral souls continent for too long. At that time, the human race was still weak. Now that he had personally come into contact with the human emperor's bloodline, he realized that the human emperor's bloodline had a natural suppressive effect on a demon star like him. This was simply a fucking coincidence. And the flying ant opposite him refused to fight him head-on, even if he was beaten to death, which made him even more depressed. The two of them chased each other around in this space, as if they were flying. The azure dragon of Providence, that had rushed out from the ground, was coiling on the ground, like a huge snake. After this azure dragon came out, it wanted to drill into Wanli Xiu's body. After all, Wanli Xiu's Providence was also quite huge, and the Providence dragon instinctively attached to the person with the stronger Providence, but it was suppressed by Star Lord Vanquisher's great strength. But Star Lord Vanquisher couldn't take it. After killing Wanli Xiu, whose Providence was far stronger than Junon Min's, he couldn't take the Providence dragon. This was the rule of the heavenly Tao. Since the start of the battle, the two of them had gone around in circles thousands of times. Star Lord Vanquisher was so angry that he cursed. Damn it, little girl, have some shame. Have some integrity, will you? Wanli Xiu ran even faster. The enemy is strong, so I retreat. How can I be shameless? You can't catch up with me, so you're talking nonsense over there. Are you embarrassed? Who's the shameless one here? Star Lord Vanquisher became more and more furious. Wanli Xiu knew clearly that as long as she held on and maintained this stalemate, Zhua and the others would naturally come to help after they finished off their opponents. So she just had to hold on as long as possible. She couldn't advance rashly. If by the time Zhua and the others arrived, she had already become a corpse, that wouldn't do. One of them chased while the other ran. If they really couldn't fight, they would fight a few times, and then continue to run. Wanli Xiu's actual combat strength was inferior, but Star Lord Vanquisher, who was affected by the human emperor's bloodline, couldn't easily take down Wanli Xiu. They could only maintain this stalemate. At this moment, the thick fog flipped. A black shadow appeared in the field. Who else could it be but Swordsmanship? Xiu'er, get out of the way. Watch me hammer him to death. Swordsmanship shouted arrogantly. A heavenly secret order flew over and disappeared. Boss, be careful. He's Star Lord Vanquisher, the seventh heavenly gate of the Big Dipper. Wanli Xiu hurriedly jumped out of the circle and warned. Star Lord Vanquisher, the seventh heavenly gate of the Big Dipper. His ancient name is Alcade. Swordsmanship laughed and rushed forward. I've heard a lot about you. Take my hammer. As soon as he let go, the black hexagrams of the starry sky eternal stone rushed over. Star-Lord Vanquisher's long spear was like a dragon. Without saying a word, he scattered the starry sky eternal stone and fought with Swishaoduo crazily. Star-Lord Vanquisher was originally a warrior. Among the stars, he was the most courageous and unstoppable warrior. He was showing off his invincible might when facing the enemy head-on. Swishaoduo used the 9-9 cat hammer and clashed with him without backing down. Suddenly, the ground shook and the mountains shook. Star-Lord Vanquisher was troubled by the hexagrams of the starry sky eternal stone that had been knocked away. After being knocked away, they didn't fall to the ground. Instead, they spun and changed directions to attack again. The young man's concealed weapon technique had already reached an unimaginable level of subtlety. However, Star-Lord Vanquisher was the most experienced. His long spear danced in a circle. In his hands, the long spear actually showed the characteristics of all kinds of weapons. For example, a knife, a sword, an axe, a staff, a halberd, a stab. It even had the effect of a long whip. The staff was afraid of the head, and the spear was afraid of the circle. This long spear in Star-Lord Vanquisher's hands was like a dragon overturning rivers and seas. The combination of light and heavy forces was superb. For a moment he fought with Swishaoduo. Wan Lixio, who was watching the battle from the side, felt that her ears were about to be deafened. The two of them didn't fight for a long time, but they were fighting head-on from the start. Swishaoduo didn't retreat half a step, and Star-Lord Vanquisher also didn't give an inch. In that case, wouldn't they end up in a fight? Wouldn't it be tit for tat? The booming sounds didn't stop from the beginning. Gradually, they connected and continued all the way. Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed as he fought. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Compared to the cat-and-mouse game just now, they didn't have many head-on confrontations. The difference now was like heaven and earth. On the opposite side, Swishaoduo's face was also filled with a rare expression of contentment. It was really hard to find such an opponent who could fight head-on. It was too rare. This kind of extreme collision that didn't give in, didn't show any tricks, and was full of passion made Swishaoduo feel intoxicated. It turned out that it was so satisfying to fight with an opponent who was on par with him. Boom! After another collision that shook the heavens and the earth, a change finally appeared in this rare great battle. The long spear in Star-Lord Vanquisher's hand couldn't bear the heavy burden and broke. The moment the long spear broke, the upper half immediately turned into fragments and flew out. Up until now, although Star-Lord Vanquisher had been using his powerful cultivation, which was above Swishaoduo's, to protect his long spear, and the long spear in his hand was also extraordinary, it still had its limits. Facing the opponent's increasingly powerful and invincible strength, he finally reached this point. And this also showed that his current true strength was not a match for this little guy in front of him. But so what? Star-Lord Vanquisher was arrogant. Without any hesitation, he directly used his fists to meet Swishaoduo's big hammers. The sound of explosions rang out once more, but it was no longer continuous. Star-Lord Vanquisher, who didn't have a weapon in his hand and only relied on his iron fists, faced the heavy pressure of the two hammers. It was difficult for him to deal with it, and he staggered and flew out. However, he immediately flew back and continued to fight head-on with his opponent. Kid, remember me? Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed wildly. I am the Big Dipper Alcade. I am the Skygate Vanquisher. He laughed wildly. I really wanted to wait a few years for you to fight with me. Unfortunately, I waited for you, but you can't wait for me. Star-Lord Vanquisher's heart was full of regret. If his soul could return to his body, and his strength wouldn't be damaged, how good would that be? According to this kid's progress, in another 3 to 5 years, he would be able to have a really satisfying battle. Unfortunately, he couldn't go back. This wish was going to come to nothing in the end. Boom! Boom! Amidst the sounds of collisions, the bones in Star Monarch Vanquisher's arms began to break one after another. But he laughed madly like thunder. He did not give in, and continued to throw punches to counterattack until the mountain-like hammer smashed heavily into his head. Chapter 1243. Kuenpeng, you have an opponent now. Star-Lord Vanquisher laughed. His entire body was turned into powder under Zhuo Xiaoduo's continuous attacks that were like a violent storm. Little White and Little Jiao, who were eager to hunt, immediately rushed out again. They repeated the operation more and more, and were extremely familiar with it. The Zhurong True Fire also burned wantonly to absorb. Feeling the huge amount of fate points falling from the sky for the third time, Zhuo Xiaoduo felt comfortable all over. However, he could not help but sigh in his heart. In the end, he even put away the starry sky indestructible stone six-pointed star. This battle was so satisfying that Zhuo Xiaoduo did not want to use hidden weapons to deal with such an opponent. He did not even want to end this battle so early. However, as Vanquisher Star's long spear was broken, Zhuo Xiaoduo had to kill him and end this battle as soon as possible. It was not about the dignity of a martial artist, but the current situation. The battle was extremely dangerous. He was not the only one who was in danger. Many of his companions might be in danger. He gave up the starry sky indestructible stone six-pointed star, which was the biggest concession he could make. He could not let it go any further. If he did, it would be cruel to his own people. And in this battle, Zhuo Xiaoduo felt that he had benefited a lot. He felt that his use of the sledgehammer had reached a new level. In terms of using the technique of lifting something heavy as if it were light, and lifting something light as if it were heavy, Vanquisher Star could use it to the acme of perfection. This was something that Zhuo Xiaoduo could not compare to. He only relied on a long spear that was not suitable for him to face the 99 cat hammer head-on. He was actually on par with him. Zhuo Xiaoduo pondered for a long time as he recalled Vanquisher Star's various techniques of using force. Wanli Xiao had quickly put away the Dragon of Fate. Zhuo, shall we split up? Yes. The two of them quickly separated and went to help each other. In the thick fog, Xiang Bing gritted her teeth and fought side by side with Zhou Yunqing against the fifth star of the Southern Dipper, Star-Lord Du Jia. Xiang Bing was currently at the pinnacle of the Skysoar realm. As for Zhou Yunqing, after his fortuitous encounter in the Sword Catacomb, he was also at the Skysoar realm. However, he was only at the mid-level of the Skysoar realm. If the two of them joined forces, they would still be at a disadvantage in terms of overall strength. However, there was not much of a difference in overall strength. At the very least, it was impossible for the Star-Lord to take down the two of them in a short period of time. In fact, this was because the two of them did not know each other and did not have much tacit understanding to work together against the enemy. Otherwise, they might have had a chance to kill Star-Lord Traitor. Right when both sides were keeping each other in check and were in a stalemate, an expanse of icy coldness suddenly descended. A sword seemed as if it was attacking by itself, and it carried extreme coldness that could compare to a world of ice and snow as it completely enveloped Calamity traversing Star Monarch within it. Following which, a snow-white, majestic, and noble phoenix rushed out with a phoenix cry and crashed into the Calamity traversing Star-Lord's face. Calamity traversing Star-Lord turned pale with fright and cried out involuntarily, "Ancient Phoenix Clan? How can this be?" Zhuo Xiaoyan arrived like a fairy from the Moon Palace and suppressed Calamity traversing Star-Lord as soon as she made her move. When Xiang Bing and Zhou Yunqing saw Zhuo Xiaoyan arrive, they were overjoyed and immediately turned from defense to offense, launching a large-scale counterattack. How could Calamity traversing Star-Lord be a match for the three of them? Just Zhuo Xiaoyan alone was already difficult for him to deal with. Now that he had to face the combined attacks of the three of them, how could he deal with them? He could not help but sigh. Hundreds of thousands of years of planning could it be? That it was just to dig a big hole for myself? How laughable, ha. Amidst his sorrowful laughter, his body was smashed into pieces by the combined attacks of the three of them. Xiang Bing stepped forward and kept the Dragon of Luck. The three of them greeted each other and went in three different directions. Right now, the battle was fierce and dangerous, and there was no time for idle chatter. It was more important to rush to other places as soon as possible. Perhaps if he said a few more words here, he might cause his brothers to be killed in other places. On the other side, Li Chenglong rushed into a thick fog and saw Yu Yan-er in a precarious situation. She was barely holding on, and opposite her was a member of the royal family. A member of the royal family, who was possessed by calamity-traversing Star Lord of the Southern Dipper Heavenly Palace, that Yu Yan'er's situation was extremely bad. She was covered in blood and could die at any time. Li Chenglong roared, "Hang in there, I'm coming." Before he finished speaking, he had already rushed into the battle. Yu Yan'er heaved a sigh of relief. Her delicate body swayed, and she almost fell. She reminded, "Be careful. The person opposite you is the #1 star of the Southern Dipper, the calamity-traversing Star Lord of the Heavenly Palace. Hurry up and recover." Li Chenglong, who was already fighting with calamity-traversing Star Lord, only had time to say this. He did not dare to be distracted anymore. Li Chenglong felt the pressure as soon as he started fighting. His opponent was indeed the #1 star of the Southern Dipper. He felt that his strength was second only to Zhuo Xiaoduo and Zhuo Xiaoyan, but he could not suppress his opponent. It seemed that he had to delay until Zhuo, or the others, came to surround him. Only then could he take down his opponent. The best way to delay was for Yu Yan'er to recover quickly and join forces with him. Otherwise, he might not be able to hold on. When Zhuo Xiaoduo rushed into another thick fog, 3 of the 15 stars in the sky had already dimmed. As the 3 stars dimmed, another demonic fog rose up, as if it had lost its suppression. On the other side of the sky, a faint shadow appeared bit by bit. The projection of the demon ancestor was actually close to the astral souls. Of course, it was only the projection that was close. No one knew how far the demon ancestor was, but one thing was for sure: the demon ancestor's location was very accurate. This was a signal of extreme danger. As the demon ancestor's projection approached, the demons in the demon spirit forest felt their demonic aura boiling, and their excitement could not be suppressed, that they could not help but release their own demonic aura in response. The demonic aura rose from the sky and the earth. At this moment, Zhan Xuejuan, who was lying quietly in the space of the Tower of Annihilation, suddenly opened her eyes. Demonic mist rose up in his eyes and flashed past. Then, a sharp murderous aura suddenly rose from her body. Zhan Xuejuan jumped up subconsciously and felt that her body was different from before. Her cultivation strength had increased by 10 times, or even 100 times. At this moment, the power of the god-slaying spear had been left in her body, and her power was naturally 10 times, or even 100 times stronger than before. She did not wake up during this period, but she was not completely unconscious. Strictly speaking, her mind was completely clear. It was just that she couldn't control her body no matter what. She could only allow the pure demonic aura to transform her body, her meridians, and even her consciousness bit by bit. Bit by bit, inch by inch, she slowly digested and absorbed that huge amount of power. She clearly knew that it was Zhuo Xiaoduo who saved her, and she clearly knew that Zhuo Xiaoduo had brought her to escape. Later, when Xiang Chong came and took care of her meticulously, Zhan Xuejuan was also clear in her heart. But she could not open her eyes, and she could not move even a little bit. But now, at this moment, she did not know what was going on, but she suddenly regained control of her body. Zhan Xuejuan turned over and got up. She clearly felt that strange and powerful force that had not been completely absorbed in her body, and she wanted to rush out spontaneously. At the same time, she also felt a tremor from her soul. That was the spiritual sense of the person she loved the most, who was now in a life and death crisis. Zhan Xuejuan was surrounded by a murderous aura, and she was extremely anxious. Zhuo Xiaoduo rushed into the thick fog again. In an instant, he saw that Xiang Chong was covered in wounds, and he almost did not look human anymore. He could not hold on any longer, and the person fighting against him was another person from the Wang family, Wang Zilong. But at this moment, Wang Zilong's eyes were shining brightly, and he was laughing strangely. It was obvious that he had been possessed by a Star Lord, and was no longer his original body. Xiang Chong could not hold on any longer, and his body was covered in blood. Although he was still waving the Overlord halberd with all his might, it was almost out of order. How could he block the continuous attacks of the other party's longsword? The wounds on his body kept increasing. Zhuo Xiaoduo rushed and threw out a heavenly secret order, and was about to help him. But a little understanding surged in his mind, and the attack that he was about to launch stopped. The fate calamity of Star Lord Lian Zhen in front of him should not be in his hands? Zhou Xiaoduo was puzzled. Suddenly, he felt that there seemed to be some movement in the Tower of Annihilation. Zhou Xiaoduo did not dare to be careless. The moment he opened it, there was a loud explosion, and an extremely rich devil qi flew out. A tall figure suddenly appeared. The person was tall and strong, and her long hair fluttered in the wind. She held a 5-meter-long spear in her hand, and her body was covered in devil qi. The spear was like a dragon, full of destructive power. The moment she appeared, she rushed towards Star Lord Lian Zhen like a meteor. Xiang Chong, who was almost powerless and exhausted on the ground, did not know where the strength came from. He suddenly jumped up and shouted in surprise, "Xuejuan?" Zhan Xuejuan's eyes were full of killing intent. Her spear was like a black dragon that pierced through the void. With a decisive momentum, it smashed Wang Zilong, who was possessing Star Lord Lian Zhen, 8 steps back. Star Lord Lian Zhen could not help but look up, and his eyes were full of shock. This girl. Who was she? How could she be so domineering? He saw the devil qi on the spear, and the sharp momentum of slaughtering the world. He could not help but be shocked and blurted out, "God-killing spear?" While he was stunned, Zhan Xuejuan's spear tip danced and created balls of colorful snowflakes again. In the rising devil qi, the spear went straight to the heart. Bang bang. Banged at the spear, shadows turned into dense raindrops, and the sword in Star Lord Lian Zhen's hand was shaken away. His heart was exposed. The cold light carried abundant devil qi. Zhan Xuejuan jumped up, and with a roar, she stabbed the spear into Star Lord Lian Zhen's chest. After the successful attack, Zhan Xuejuan did not hesitate at all. She continued to rush forward with the spear, and skewered Wang Zilong's body, who was possessed by Star Lord Lian Zhen, on the spear tip. She spun him around a dozen times, and then fell to the ground heavily. Then the 5-meter-long spear turned into a huge stick. It fell down with a whistling sound. Chapter 1244. Puff puff, puff. She hammered it 300 to 400 times in a row. Starlight exploded. Bye and Jiu rushed out. Hurry up and grab it, or you'll be eaten by that gun. Zhu Rong's true fire also rushed out. Just like before. Luck points fell like rain. They fell into Zhou Xiaoduo's head, who was already dumbstruck. He was stunned for a long time, and he wasted the quick and easy points. Zhou Xiaoduo was now dumbfounded. Zhan Xuejuan. How could she be so strong? Xuejuan. Seeing that the battle was over, Xiang Chong rushed over in ecstasy. He didn't even forget to use the divine stone to heal his injuries and make himself look more energetic. Ah Chong. Zhan Xuejuan's eyes were full of deep love, but she took a step back with a complicated expression. You. Don't come over, listen to me. Xuejuan, you. What's wrong? Xiang Chong's eyes were full of joy. I have demonic energy in my body. I can't control it. Murderous energy. Zhan Xuejuan's eyes were full of pain as she murmured. The tyrannical power on her body didn't stop because the battle had ended. Instead, it was still there, and it was gradually increasing. You. What's wrong with you? Xiang Chong's heart tightened. I've been possessed by a demonic energy, and I'm not destined to be a good match for you. Zhan Xuejuan's face was full of pain. What? Xiang Chong was dumbfounded. Just as he was waiting for an explanation, he heard Zhou Xiaoduo put away his phone and say impatiently, "The situation is so urgent now. Where do you have time to watch the two of you act pitiful? If you have time to be sentimental, why don't you quickly split up and rescue the others?" The two of them were full of pain, but they were interrupted by the heartless words. They couldn't help but be stunned on the spot, not knowing how to react. It's just a little bit of demonic energy. How did you get possessed by a demonic energy? You look like you're cuckolded and pregnant. Why are you crying? What's there to cry about? Zhou Xiaoduo pointed at him and said angrily, Zhan Xuejuan, your man is such a disappointment. Hurry up and get to work. See how the others are doing. Well, the two of you should work together. Look at Xiang Chong now. If he meets a strong enemy, he will definitely die. The two of you aren't paying attention to the main point right now. If there's anything you can't solve, don't you still have me? Hurry up and fuck off. Don't just focus on talking about love. Just the two of you want to feed me dog food? This little trick of yours is like playing with a broadsword in front of Guangong, playing with a spear in front of Zhao Zilong. Do you understand drunken spear? Let me tell you, I've already recorded it. If you don't want to be publicly executed, hurry up and get to work. Xiang Chong and Zhang Xuejuan blushed. The joy of reuniting after a long separation, the unspeakable pain, and the sadness in their hearts all flew away in an instant. The two of them looked at Zhou Xiaoduo hatefully. Why is this bastard's word so unpleasant to hear? What do you mean by being cuckolded? Do you know how to speak properly? Also, we were speaking from the bottom of our hearts. How is that playing with words? How can this be the same as the flower spear? However, after hearing Zhou Xiaoduo's words, Zhang Xuejuan immediately felt relieved. That's right. If there's anything you can't solve, there's Zhua. Even if Zhua can't solve it, there's still Zhua's parents. At that time, the minister seemed to have mentioned my situation and said that I need some time to transition. Thinking of this, she immediately felt refreshed. Even the situation of being disturbed by the devil intent suddenly became much better. In fact, thinking about it, Zhang Xuejuan recalled how she was captured by the devil race and tortured as a tool. At that time, there was no hope at all. When they should have given up on saving her, Zhou Xiaoduo still bravely stepped forward and rescued her from an impossible situation. That was already an impossible thing. Didn't he still do it? Nothing is impossible in this world if one has the will. As long as one has the will, as long as one doesn't give up, there's nothing in this world that can't be solved. Xiang Chong also thought of Zhou Xiaoduo's divine ability. Since Zhou said so, he must be certain that everything will be fine. The two of them were just scaring themselves and worrying for nothing. With this thought, he immediately felt relieved. After feeling relieved, he immediately gave Zhou Xiaoduo a middle finger to take revenge on this guy for calling him a cuckold. Then he pulled Zhang Xuejuan and flew away. Even though their actions were quick, it still looked a little sweet and affectionate, that it was obvious that the two of them had relaxed too early. They actually neglected another important point that Zhou Xiaoduo mentioned. After the 9 heavenly tribulations, Zhou Chonglu and Wu Yuding led the unscrupulous couple, and Zhou Xiaonian as an accomplice. They started another operation of the unscrupulous people, recording. Just now, Zhou Xiaoduo didn't just say that he wanted to record. He really recorded it. Such high-quality material. If they didn't keep it as a memento, wouldn't it be a pity if they didn't use it as a means of blackmail and public punishment in the future? Well, in a sense, or from a long-term point of view, this material, this video, was the real threat to Xiang Chong and his wife in the future. How could a mere demonic disturbance compare to it? The difference was like heaven and earth, and they couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. However, Xiang Chong and his wife were far from understanding this. By the time they did, it was already too late. Seeing the two of them leave together with ease, Zhou Xiaoduo let out a long sigh of relief and hurriedly turned in the other direction. Zhang Xuejuan's problem was, of course, very big. However, when the boat reached the bridge head, everything would be all right. This girl had heaven-defying luck and obtained heaven-ascending cultivation without any effort. How could it be possible that she didn't pay a considerable price? However, these things were all within the scope of being able to be dealt with as her cultivation increased. In the end, it wasn't a big deal. Besides, when Xiang Chong collected the Fate Dragon, the two of them could go out and find a suitable one to snatch for Zhang Xuejuan. Combining their fates, there was nothing they couldn't do. The thick fog churned. Chen Xiaotian had already killed the ancestral dragon high school student in front of him and collected the Fate Dragon. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, he saw the thick fog churning and a black-robed youth rushing over. Zhou Xiaoduo immediately saw the corpse on the ground and smiled playfully. "It's already over?" Chen Xiaotian said indifferently. "Zhou Xiaoduo? You're a step too late." Zhou Xiaoduo looked at the heavenly secret order in his hand, and his expression became even more playful. "Chen Xiaotian?" Chen Xiaotian smiled. "Nice to meet you." Zhou Xiaoduo narrowed his eyes and said, "The first star of the Big Dipper, the Sun Star, the Sky Commandant, the Greedy Wolf Star Lord, Gu Tianshu, is a first-class figure of the demon court. It's fate that we met. Why don't you come out and meet me? Chen Xiaoyan's pupils constricted. Starlight flickered in his eyes. He looked at Zhou Xiaoduo and said indifferently, "The so-called son of the Sky Inspector throne is indeed extraordinary. You're really knowledgeable." Upon hearing that, how could Zhou Xiaoduo not know that the person in front of him had changed? He smiled faintly and said, "I wonder if I should call you Star Lord Greedy Wolf? Or Sun Star Lord? Or Tianshu Star Lord?" Chen Xiaotian said, "I'm Tianshu. However, the name of Greedy Wolf is indeed true. You can call me whatever you want." "Alright, hello, Star Lord Greedy Wolf." Zhou Xiaoduo smiled. "Lord Star Lord, you're possessing my old acquaintance. I almost couldn't recognize you." Star Lord Greedy Wolf narrowed his eyes. "Old acquaintance?" Zhou Xiaoduo laughed. "Meng Qintian, how long are you going to pretend?" Chen Xiaoyan's gaze turned cold. He immediately reverted to his original voice. "Zhou Xiaoduo, you're really sharp. I admire you. However, I still don't understand. How did you recognize me? Is it possible to clear my doubts before you kill me?" Zhou Xiaoduo said indifferently. "With your insignificant skills, do you really think you can create such a secret? All of your plans and schemes are nothing but a joke in my eyes." Zhou Xiaoduo was not bluffing. He had indeed discovered Meng Qintian long ago. Previously, when they were gathering people, Zhou Xiaoduo had already thrown out 36 Tianji orders. Through the feedback of the Tianji orders, Zhou Xiaoduo was surprised to find that Meng Qintian was among them. He really did not expect that Meng Qintian could sneak into Ancestral Dragon Gaowu's team. What surprised Zhou Xiaoduo even more was not only Meng Qintian, but also another acquaintance. He had only heard of her name, but had never met her before. She was Ning Qingcheng. When Zhou Xiaoduo saw these two names, he immediately felt that something was wrong. Could it be that Ancestral Dragon Gaowu had become a sieve? How could he be infiltrated like this? Since he came in, he had been trying his best to find Meng Qintian. He knew very well how insidious this guy was. On that day, he had wiped out the entire Meng family's account book. Only Meng Qintian was fine. Not only did he escape, but he could also sneak into Ancestral Dragon Gaowu and attend the Dragon Bloodline competition today. Zhou Xiaoduo had already known that this guy was definitely not of the Meng family's bloodline. Ning Qingcheng also escaped, so Ning Qingcheng was not a member of the Ning family. Thinking about it carefully, these two guys were not only lucky, but also luckier than ordinary people. After running out of the first Heavenly Dao layout and going around in circles, they actually entered the second Heavenly Dao layout. Now they seemed to be the main force. If it were not for his manifestation technique that had improved further, he was afraid that he would not be able to see through the true identity of these two people. It was hard to say who would win or lose. Meng Qintian's voice came out slowly. "How many people of the Meng family are still alive?" Zhou Xiaoduo sneered. "Including you, almost all of them are dead. Now in the whole Meng family, only you, Meng Qintian, have not been wiped out." Meng Qintian did not speak. Instead, it was the voice of the Greedy Wolf Star Monarch. "Zhou Xiaoduo, are you killing people now to exterminate the whole family?" Zhou Xiaoduo laughed and said sarcastically, "Greedy Wolf Star Monarch, what you said surprised me. According to the ancient records, when the demon clan ruled the continent, didn't you always want to eat a whole city of people? Why? Now it's just exterminating a family for revenge, and you can't stand it? Why are you pretending to be a big shot?" The Greedy Wolf Star Monarch laughed. Starlight shone, and a demon subduing pestle appeared in his hand. He said lightly, "Since that's the case, I will do the heavenly patrol on behalf of heaven, and enforce justice on behalf of heaven." Chapter 1245. Bah! Zhou Xiaoduo spat and said disdainfully, "Can you not be so hypocritical? If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you talking nonsense? Why was the heavenly court of the demon race destroyed back then? It's probably the reason why all of you are so talkative and procrastinating." Greedy Wolf Star Lord's face darkened. This kid's mouth was really vicious. "If I win, don't forget to hand over the Dragon of Providence." Greedy Wolf Star Lord looked at Zhou Xiaoduo with a covetous look in his eyes. "If I win, you have to hand over the Dragon of Providence." Swishaoduo would not be at a disadvantage. His aura could not be weak. In this space of providence, once the dragon of providence entered a person's body, it could not be taken out without the person's consent. In fact, this was reasonable. How could one get out the providence that had already turned into one's body? However, the dragon's snatching pulse had just begun. Swishaoduo and Greedy Wolf Star Lord had both gained something. Although the dragon of providence had been taken into their bodies, it should not have completely merged with their own providence. It could still be forced out. Not only did Greedy Wolf Star Lord know this, but so did Swishaoduo. Okay. With a thought, a dragon of providence slowly emerged from Greed Star Lord's body. Then, he placed the dragon of providence on the ground and coiled it into a ball. The dragon of providence sensed for a moment and instinctively wanted to rush towards Swishaoduo. The human in this position was much luckier than the person he had just possessed. A fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. However, Greedy Wolf Star Lord pressed it down and shouted in a deep voice, "Swishaoduo, what about you?" Swishaoduo was displeased. I, Iron Fist Young Master Swishaoduo, have always been open and aboveboard. How can I go back on my words on such a matter? With a thought, the door of the Void Extermination Pagoda opened. Xiaolong transformed into an illusory fog and curled over. At least, he looked exactly the same as the Dragon of Providence. Their eyes were lifeless, and they only had shape and basic instincts. They did not have intelligence or spiritual sense. The two dragons looked at each other and coiled into a ball. They both sat there obediently. Alright, the bet is set. The winner and loser are clear. A gentleman never goes back on his word. Good. The winner gets everything, and the loser loses everything. That's how it should be, fair and just. The winner is the king, and the loser is a thief. That's how it is. The Greedy Wolf Star Monarch smiled with satisfaction, and murderous intent surged in his eyes. Swishaoduo died. Before he finished speaking, he had already soared into the air. Suddenly, specks of starlight descended from above. Swishaoduo let out a loud roar and charged forward with his bare hands. His entire body was overflowing with the might of the third layer of the Flaming Sun scripture, as he brazenly attacked. The demon's subduing pestle was mixed with the whistling sound of the wind as it approached. Seeing that Swishaoduo was actually fighting with his fists, Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf laughed in his heart. Could it be that this kid was an idiot? Fighting against my starlight demon subduing pestle with his bare hands. Not to mention that this kid's cultivation level was lower than mine. Even if it was not, he would be at a great disadvantage and have no chance of winning. However, just as he was thinking that, Swishaoduo in front of him suddenly disappeared and was replaced by two huge hammers that covered Swishaoduo's entire body. The two huge hammers, mixed with the tyrannical power of thunder, slammed heavily on the demon subduing pestle. There was a deafening boom. Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was sent flying more than 100 feet away with the demon subduing pestle. Swishaoduo succeeded in his attack and did not hesitate at all. The two hammers in his hands turned into a storm and smashed over continuously. Every hammer strike was with all his strength. No matter how you parry, I'll hammer with all my strength. A similar situation had been repeated several times, just like a bull copying a gourd. Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was shocked and used all his strength to fight back, but he was still forced to retreat more than 100 meters by Swishaoduo in one breath. Although it seemed that he was at a disadvantage, Perfected Lord Greedy Wolf was puzzled. What's the use of fighting with all your strength? You can only force me to retreat at most. What's the use? Don't you know that strength cannot last long and softness cannot be defended? As long as I can withstand your first burst of energy, I'll be weakened by the second and exhausted by the third. And the outcome will be reversed. Just as his imagination was running wild, he suddenly saw something. Immediately, his eyes widened and he furiously said, "Shut up. Despicable." He counterattacked in an extremely frenzied manner, because he saw that the two Providence dragons that were originally sitting on the ground obediently, the one that belonged to Swishaoduo, suddenly moved when Swishaoduo launched a fierce attack. It suddenly jumped up, opened its mouth, and swallowed its own Providence dragon in one gulp. When he saw it, more than half of the Providence dragon that originally belonged to him had been swallowed. Zhuoxiaoduo's Providence dragon looked extremely satisfied at this moment, and it even glanced at him sideways. The strange look in his eyes was as if a normal person was looking at a fool, that this feeling made Star-Lord Greedy Wolf feel that he was an idiot, that he had been fooled. He had been fooled. This kid didn't want to keep his promise at all. The previous words and actions were all pawns. It was a trick to deceive him. It turned out that this dragon knew how to eat other dragons. This was really. Where's your martial arts demeanor? Where's your honesty? Where's your word? Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was furious. After fighting with the Wu people for a long time, he was used to his opponents being people who kept their promises. Now, he actually met such a shameless person. To be honest, he had never thought that his opponent would go back on his word. He had never thought that his opponent would go back on his word. He had done it so openly, and without any disguise at all. He had even done it so happily. What a bastard. Zhuoxiaoduo's hammers moved like the wind, but his posture became steady and calm. Hearing this, he said disdainfully, "Of course I keep my promise. Did you see me snatching your dragon? I'm so far away. How can I snatch it? Besides, we have a gentleman's agreement. Once a promise is made, it can't be taken back." Bullshit. Your dragon ate my dragon. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was about to explode. What does that have to do with me? I kept my promise and didn't touch it. Zhuoxiaoduo said, "The bet is fair and just. What's the difference between your dragon eating it and taking it yourself? You despicable man." Bullshit. Why are you so unreasonable? Zhuoxiaoduo said angrily. Your dragon can also eat mine. Who can you blame if it doesn't eat it? Star-Lord Greedy Wolf gritted his teeth and broke them. He shut up and didn't say anything. It was useless to talk. This was because after the Dragon of Destiny devoured his own dragon, it actually flew up and disappeared. Despicable, shameless, 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 and immoral. This is the best. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was so disgusted that he felt as if he had swallowed a pile of feces. He never thought that one day he would be played like this. He became more and more furious, and his attacks became fiercer, intending to kill Zhuoxiaoduo in one fell swoop. Zhuoxiaoduo used the Flaming Sun Sutra to control the Thousand Souls Nightmare Hammer. He didn't underestimate the enemy and attacked rashly. The Primordial Fire Technique, Zhu Rong's True Fire, Bai, and Jiu didn't help in the battle, because Zhuoxiaoduo found that Star-Lord Greedy Wolf in front of him was indeed worthy of being the head of the Big Dipper. His strength was much stronger than the other Star-Lords he had encountered. Even if he used all his strength, he might only be able to defeat him, and not kill him in one fell swoop. Since it was difficult to finish the battle in one fell swoop, how could Zhuoxiaoduo expose his trump card under such circumstances? After all, those who had seen all of Zhuoxiaoduo's trump cards were all dead. No one was an exception. Star-Lord Greedy Wolf's demon subduing pestle was formed from primordial chi starlight. Not only was its texture special, but it also had a special characteristic. As long as Star-Lord Greedy Wolf repaired it with starlight, it could be intact for a long time. It could even be indestructible. Furthermore, Zhuoxiaoduo's 99 cat hammer was a genuine divine weapon. The three weapons collided in succession, and the sound of their power was earth-shattering. As the weapons collided continuously, the nearby space shattered and reformed, and then was destroyed again. The deafening sound did not stop from the beginning. The demon subduing pestle was shattered and condensed again and again. Both sides were fighting with all their might. However, Zhuoxiaoduo clearly felt that the Star-Lord Greedy Wolf in front of him was fundamentally different from the Star-Lord Vanquisher from before. The Star-Lord Vanquisher from before was a pure martial arts fanatic. In order to fight, he would rather die than retreat. However, this Star-Lord Greedy Wolf had a lot of thoughts. In addition to the slight damage to the demon subduing pestle, he had to use starlight to repair it, so that the weapon was always in its best and most powerful state. He also had all kinds of sneak attacks and sinister tricks. The traps hidden in every move and style were so many that it made one speechless. Zhuoxiaoduo braced himself and dealt with it with all his might. Zhuoxiaoduo was trembling with fear. He was very careful, afraid that he would accidentally fall into his opponent's trap. However, He did not know that Star-Lord Greedy Wolf was also about to vomit. Since ancient times, no matter what kind of experts the immortals and mortals were, they hated opponents like Swordsmanship the most. He was born with divine strength, and his strength was many times stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. No matter what move you used, he would smash you with his hammer. You had thousands of brilliant plans, but he only had one set of rules. This kind of method was really disgusting, because no matter how many techniques you used, he would ignore them all. And a person like Swordsmanship, who was already very disgusting, had to be added to the word more. Because in addition to ignoring your techniques, he had countless techniques in addition to his set of rules. If he ignored your techniques, there was nothing you could do. However, if you ignored his techniques, you might face a tragic ending of being smashed into a meat patty at any time. Moreover, Swordsmanship's hammer was too big. No matter what move you used, as long as he pushed the hammer forward, you could only hit the hammer, because the hammer completely blocked his body, leaving no room for escape. Such a battle atmosphere made Star-Lord Greedy Wolf feel simply disgusted. It was so disgusting that he opened the door. Chapter 1246. On the surface, Greedy Wolf Star seemed to be fighting calmly, but in fact, he was cursing in his heart. The ancestors of the Zwa family had all been taken care of more than once. They came excitedly, and had just collected a dragon of luck. Then, they encountered such a disgusting guy. They even lost the dragon of luck that they had already obtained. The person was disgusting, the character was disgusting, the weapon was disgusting, the way he fought was disgusting, the skills were even more disgusting, and the way he dealt with things was the most disgusting. How could he not be disgusted? What kind of person could give birth to such a thing? And who trained such a thing? Could it be that the people in the Astral Souls continent are like this? Greedy Wolf Star cursed in his heart as he fought. Judging from his looks, his parents and master are probably not good people. As the battle continued, another realization that made Greedy Wolf Star Lord feel particularly aggrieved came to him. He had a subtle feeling that he was training the other party when he was fighting with the other party. If this feeling came true, then not only would he be disgusted, but he would also be depressed and aggrieved. He had originally hoped that this boy could use such a heavy weapon for a long time. It could not be used for long, especially when fighting with an expert like him. He was afraid that this boy would be exhausted in a short time, and then he would be at his mercy. But how could he expect that this boy, who had already hammered thousands of times, still looked as if he was not tired at all, and he could still hammer 100,000 times? What the hell is going on today? In the booming sounds, Swordsmanship became braver and braver as he fought. The two hammers, which weighed more than 20,000 kilograms, flew up and down. The two hammers, which weighed more than 20,000 kilograms, were held in his hands as if they were weightless. He pointed to the east and hit the west. After a long while, the surroundings became hotter and hotter, and the air began to be distorted by the blazing energy emitted by Swordsmanship. Swordsmanship looked at Greedy Wolf Star and seemed to be a little impatient. Thinking quickly, he shouted at the right time, "Look at my unique skill!" Before he could finish his words, he had already infused the primordial fire art into the blazing sun divine art. The temperature instantly rose a second time, even hotter than before, and his attacks were even more ferocious. However, the Greedy Wolf Star Lord was relieved in the face of the soaring attack. He had been waiting for Swordsmanship to use his trump card. During the Great War of the Liches and Demons, everyone had been playing around leisurely. When it came to fighting with their lives on the line, even if it was an inconspicuous guy, the power he could unleash was not to be underestimated. Over time, he had developed a habit of not using his trump card right from the start. He had to keep a trump card to deal with the enemy. Otherwise, if the enemy dodged it while in perfect condition, it would be his turn to suffer. The longer one kept their trump cards, the longer they would live. If his background was known early on, he would definitely become the target of public criticism. No matter how high his cultivation was, it would be difficult for him to escape the danger of death. This guy really has a trump card. He's smart. In the Greedy Wolf Star Lord's opinion, With Wuxia's current cultivation, it was already something that countless young heroes and talents could not do in a fight with an expert like him. Indeed, he was worthy of the 4 words. However, that was all. With a thought, the demon-subduing pestle rolled up with a hum, and its momentum soared. Starlight shone brightly. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 4. And with a shake of his body, he turned into a figure with 3 heads and 6 arms. He waved the 6 demon-subduing pestles and pounced fiercely. When Zuo used his trump card, the greedy wolf Star-Lord also showed his trump card, which was enough to kill Zuo. In the face of the greedy wolf Star-Lord, who had detonated his ultimate trump card, Zuo was really shocked. He had tried his best to overestimate the strength of the person in front of him, but he did not expect the old guy to be so insidious that he had kept such a powerful trump card for so long. If he had really ignored everything and used all his strength just now, he might have been able to suppress the opponent for a short period of time. However, as long as the opponent took a breath and launched a full counterattack with 3 heads and 6 arms, even if he would not be defeated, he would inevitably suffer a great loss. It's still the same principle of building up energy at the first spurt, weakening at the second, and exhausting at the third. At that time, I won't have any time to change my moves. If I use all my spiritual energy to attack, even if I have a trump card, I won't have enough time to use it. Fortunately, he had already reserved some strength. With a loud roar, Bai and Jiu were summoned into the 99 Cat Hammer. The third, more blazing flame, Zhu Rong's genuine fire, also surged out and mixed with 2 heads and 4 arms of the opponent. There was a shrill scream, and a smell of barbecued meat instantly filled the air. The greedy wolf Star-Lord instantly retreated. Like his brothers, he was also caught off guard, and suffered a loss from Zhu Rong's genuine fire. Flames rose all over his body, and he screamed, "The successor of Zhu Wu, the god of fire Zhu Rong?" Zuo Xiaoduo was waiting for this moment, the flaw of the opponent's mind. At the moment when the opponent's strongest attack failed, he launched a large-scale attack and attacked head-on, taking advantage of the victory to pursue and attack. Zhu Rong's genuine fire suddenly expanded. This time, the hammer was directly added with the power of Yin-Yang Samsara of Bai and Jiu. With an unprecedented momentum, it smashed out one after another. At the same time, the 6-pointed star of the starry sky Eternal Stone, which had been hidden before, also passed through Zhu Rong's genuine fire. With a flash of light, it went straight to the greedy wolf star. The real firepower was unleashed. The greedy wolf Star-Lord was caught off guard by the sudden change, and was directly attacked by Zhu Rong's genuine fire. Although he reacted quickly and retreated, he still inevitably lost a head and 2 arms. Not only was he in so much pain that he wished he was dead, but his combat power was also sharply reduced. It should be known that his current strength was limited to starlight origin energy, not natal demonic power. It could not allow him to recover instantly. This sharp decrease had caused him to lose almost a third of his strength, and the pain of his divine sense being burned still lingered, causing him to be unable to endure it. As he staggered back, the opponent's hammer chased after him without giving him a chance to breathe. When they came into contact again, he was shocked to find that the opponent's strength seemed to have more than doubled on the original basis. Not only had he become weaker, but the opponent had become stronger as well. The difference between their strengths was even greater now. As soon as the greedy wolf Star-Lord came into contact, he could not hold his body steady and staggered back. However, Zuo Xiaoduo shook his hands, and the 2 hammers left greedy wolf Star-Lord's hands and chased after him. This change was even more beyond the greedy wolf Star-Lord's expectations. No matter how hard he tried, it was hard for him to imagine that the other party would use such heavy and huge hammers as meteor hammers. Before he could think about it, one of the hammers had already smashed his shoulder. The demon-subduing pestle immediately flew out of his hand and turned into starlight fragments, never to exist again. The shoulder that was hit by the hammer was shattered without any room to resist. The greedy wolf Star-Lord was still desperately dodging and retreating, hoping to be lucky. The 2 hammers that were chasing after him suddenly changed again, and there was a flash of silver light at the main target of the attack. His 2 eyes, were suddenly pierced by more than 10 needles. Moreover, after the needles were pierced, they immediately exploded, not giving the greedy wolf Star-Lord any room to maneuver. Ow! The greedy wolf Star-Lord screamed, hidden weapons. Before his voice died away, 3 hexagrams of the eternal starry sky stone had already formed the shape of a letter and drilled straight into his chest, hitting the vital part of his heart. The moment the starlight exploded again, a figure completely made of starlight suddenly broke away from Meng Qintian's body and flew hundreds of meters away in an illusory state. Meng Qintian's battered body lay on the ground like a broken sack, covered with cuts and bruises. However, Swordsmanship had no time to care about him. He rushed to the greedy wolf Star-Lord as if he was flying. Want to run? I haven't received my luck points yet. Why are you running? How could I let you have any leeway to escape from this demon? The 2 hammers seemed to be flying out of his hands, but in fact, they were being controlled by Bai and Jiu, maintaining the remaining momentum of the 1,000 Souls Nightmare hammers, and the power of yin and yang from the 2 little ones. Immediately, the wind of reincarnation surged. The black and white power naturally formed the shape of a yin-yang fish and smashed down crazily, with the intention to kill. The greedy wolf Star-Lord endured the pain and shouted, "Wait!" Swordsmanship didn't seem to hear him. He hammered 3 times in a row, without any mercy. "Wait! I can stay and guide your cultivation with the power of my soul. You should know that it's not a threat at all," the greedy wolf Star-Lord said loudly. Boom, boom, boom. What answered him was still the sledgehammer smashing down like a storm. For Swordsmanship, no temptation or benefits were more useful than luck points. Furthermore, Swordsmanship could clearly see the true meaning of the greedy wolf Star-Lord's words. When the demons return, will you still be as easy to talk to as you are now? When that time comes, you can return to your main body at any time. Won't crushing me be as easy as crushing a bug? If I believe your nonsense, won't I be even more stupid than you? Swordsmanship thought about these things very deeply. Naturally, he wouldn't be greedy for temporary benefits and leave behind future troubles. In the starlight shadow, the greedy wolf Star-Lord was begging for mercy at first. Then, seeing that his pleas were useless, he laughed crazily. Suddenly, all the starlight scattered, and a faint voice sounded. Under the guidance of the life soul, the person who kills me will never forget this hatred. A faintly discernible illusory starlight rushed into the space between Swordsmanship's eyebrows. When Swordsmanship saw the inexplicable attack, he tried to block it with the 99 cat hammer and Zhurong's true fire, but he failed. The starlight pierced straight through and entered the space between his eyebrows, but he didn't feel anything after that. Then with a bang the starlight exploded. The starlight body of the greedy wolf Star-Lord dissipated into thin air, no longer existing in the world. 700 luck points poured in like a storm. Chapter 1247. Swordsmanship laughed and walked back, dragging the sledgehammer. There were still 2 drops of luck points left. Meng Qintian. This guy was actually not dead yet. His life was indeed very tenacious. When he came to Meng Qintian, he found that Meng Qintian was dying and could die at any time. He stared at the approaching Swordsmanship with his only intact eye. "Do you have something to say? If you don't, are you unwilling to die?" Swordsmanship looked at Meng Qintian and asked faintly. Meng Qintian could be regarded as a talent of his generation. At this moment he was seriously injured. His internal organs had been smashed, and his Dantian and purple mansion had turned into a pile of paste. With his cultivation, he should have died long ago. At this moment, he forced himself to stay alive because he still had some doubts. If this obsession could not be resolved, he would not die in peace. "I do have something I don't understand," Meng Qintian said with difficulty. "I hope you can enlighten me." "Go ahead," Swordsmanship said. "I'm very curious." "Why?" Meng Qintian said intermittently. "Why? Why can't I hide from you?" The moment Swordsmanship called out his name, Meng Qintian instinctively knew that this plan was going to fail again. Because no matter what, Swordsmanship should not know about his existence. Moreover, Swordsmanship was not surprised at all that he had appeared in the layout of the heavenly way. No matter how Meng Qintian thought about it, he felt that this was absolutely impossible. In order to hide his identity, he had been keeping a low profile since he came to Shangjing. Unless it was a last resort, he would not show his face in public. His actions were flawless. How did Zhou Xiaoduo know about his identity? He was even very sure that Zhou Xiaoduo did not know about his identity and the changes that happened here before the dragons fought for the heavenly way. If Zhou Xiaoduo knew about it, he would not even allow him to appear here. But, why did he know about it when they had just met? He had even figured out the Star Lord's plan to possess him and used a targeted strategy to kill the greedy wolf Star Lord. What was more, judging from Zhou Xiaoduo's performance, he had probably killed more than one greedy wolf Star Master. In that case, more than one Star Master had been killed by him. This result was simply too absurd. The Stargate sect had been planning this for many years. They had spent countless manpower, resources, and time to confirm that this plan was foolproof. Yet, Zhou Xiaoduo was able to break it without knowing anything. Meng Qiantian wouldn't believe it, even if he was beaten to death, if someone told him that it was all because of the power of luck that could turn misfortunes into blessings. I know of your existence, and I have my reasons for destroying your plans, Zhou Xiaoduo said. It shouldn't be. Meng Qiantian's voice grew fainter and fainter. Back then in Phoenix City, everything was clearly within our control. Back then, you were just a child with a mediocre cultivation base. Yet, you were able to turn the tables and overturn the entire situation. Everything was set up, but you, an outsider, actually broke the feng shui formation and set up a heaven-defying plan. I have been thinking about this for years, but I still can't figure it out. Why? Zhou Xiaoduo sneered. Don't you know that I know the art of observing qi? Meng Qiantian struggled and wanted to shake his head, but he had no strength left. He said, No, it's not the art of observing qi. Even if Dongfang Zhunyang were here in person, he wouldn't be able to overturn the situation so easily. His breath was getting weaker and weaker, and he was on the verge of begging. Although my strength is mediocre, but when it comes to life planning, I've always been proud of it. I've never lost so miserably, so inexplicably, without a single clue. I'm dying. Zhou Xiaoduo, can you clear my doubts? Meng Qiantian asked. That was indeed the case. Ever since Meng Qiantian started to carry out missions, he had always been complacent. Only when he lost to Zhou Xiaoduo did he lose twice in a row. Moreover, both times, it could be said that he lost in a muddle-headed manner. Everything had been calculated, all the preparations had been made, and all the connections had been made. Everything that could be used had been used. Even the way of heaven was part of his calculation and cooperation. The ancient star formation that unified all 15 star gates. The legend of the mission from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Everything had been dug out. With so many advantages, how could he not be confused when he lost so easily? If he couldn't know the truth, Meng Qiantian would die with regret. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Zhou Xiaoduo was very determined. Who knows if you're dead or not? Who knows if you can still send messages after your death? What greedy wolf star did just now is enough to give me a headache, isn't it? If I tell you, won't I have to live in fear all day long? A bitter smile flashed through Meng Qiantian's single eye. He could understand Zhou Xiaoduo's caution. If it were him, he would most likely have made the same choice. He fell silent in disappointment for a moment, then suddenly asked, Chenyu, before she died, what did she say? He struggled to ask, Does she hate me? Meng Chenyu? This name, which he hadn't heard for a long time, reminded Zhou Xiaoduo of many things. That girl with short hair, and a valiant figure. She should have been a girl favored by the heavens, but she had been influenced into a vicious woman. Zhou Xiaoduo didn't want to answer. But after thinking for a while he said, She died very quickly that day and didn't suffer much pain. Naturally, she didn't have time to say anything. I don't know if she hates you or not. Meng Qiantian asked with a trembling voice. Will I have a chance to see her in the netherworld? Zhou Xiaoduo said lightly. Her soul has a chance to go to the netherworld. If there really is a netherworld. But you are destined to never meet her in the netherworld. Meng Qiantian relaxed and murmured. That's good. That's good. She still has a chance. That's good. He didn't know where he was looking, but he seemed to see the little sister from back then. She was as cute as ice. She held his hand and looked up at him. She asked innocently, "Are you my brother? Are you really my brother? So I have a brother. Brother, will you play with me?" Those big clear eyes. That little face that was as pretty as a piece of jade. Meng Chintian looked into the void, and a trace of gentleness and guilt slowly appeared on his face. He murmured, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He kept saying sorry, and his voice got lower and lower. He kept saying until there was no more sound, no breath. His single eye was still looking at a certain direction affectionately. In a flash, 2 fate points fell from the sky. This proved that Meng Chintian was dead. He was really dead. So Xiaoduo watched as Bai and Blackie rushed out and devoured Meng Chintian's soul. But he did not stop them. He did not have a trace of pity in his heart from the beginning to the end. It doesn't make sense that I would let you go after you've done so many evil deeds for your whole life. That's impossible. Well, it seems that Meng Qinyu was the one who killed the 9x9 cat hammer. However, the 9x9 cat hammer and Bai Xiaohei did not have the power to annihilate the original soul. With his cultivation strength at that time, he was indeed unable to destroy Meng Qinyu's soul. It was not a lie to say that she still had a chance to go to the netherworld. At this moment, a misty power of fate slowly rose from Meng Chintian's body. Power of fate. Zhou Xiaoduo was stunned. He had planned to leave and go to other places as soon as possible. He did not expect that there would be another change. He had killed so many people, but this was the first time such a situation had happened. Meng Chintian had an additional power of fate? What kind of explanation was this? Why didn't anyone else have it? Zhou Xiaoduo looked at it subconsciously. He found that this power of fate was rather dishonest. There were specks of starlight in it, and it seemed to be spreading into the sky. What was more, when it first came out, its shape was even more strange. It vaguely looked like the shape of an ancient array, that since such a good thing had appeared, Zhou Xiaoduo would never let it disappear. Want to run? Zhou Xiaoduo coughed. Xiaolong rushed out like a hungry tiger. He pounced on the power of fate, like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. After a few bites, he swallowed it into his stomach. Immediately, he heard Xiaolong's voice in his mind. Boss, this thing seems to be just a primer. Primer? What primer? It's this plot. If it succeeds, it will lead all the fate to the sky with this power of fate. It will turn into demonic qi and benefit the Southern Dipper star array. Then it will lead to some kind of consequence. Zhou Xiaoduo nodded and said, I see. This is the real key. No wonder greedy wolf star monarch chose to possess someone from his camp. Since the cause and effect were clear, Zhou Xiaoduo did not hesitate. He waved his hand and put away the eternal star stone on the ground. He floated up and flew to the other side of the thick fog. Before he flew out of this area, he waved his hand. A strong force flew out and blew Meng Chintian's broken body, lying on the ground, into pieces. The moment he passed through the thick fog, the fog blew on his face. It was like a dream. Zhou Xiaoduo suddenly had a feeling. A certain era, or a certain period. It was finally over. Perhaps from now on, he would no longer be the Zhou Xiaoduo in Phoenix City. Even if his original intention had not changed, time had changed. Things remained the same, but people had changed. Today, the grudge from back then had finally turned into a dusty memory. Yu Moyan was trying his best to fight against a strong enemy. Suddenly, the thick fog on the left side turned over. Dugu Yen rushed in and joined the battle without saying a word, fighting side by side with Yu Moyan. Why did you come at such a good time? Yu Moyan was overjoyed. Compared to others, he naturally hoped that Dugu Yenner would come to his side. He was just trying his best to deal with the strong enemy in front of him. If Yenner faced an enemy of similar strength alone, wouldn't she be in danger? Now that Dugu Yenner came to his rescue, Yu Moyan's heart, which had been hanging in the air, could finally be at ease. Chapter 1248. It was Zhua who saved me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see me now. Dugu Yenner rolled her eyes and explained. Zhua is really reliable, Umo Yin said sincerely. The one I met before was Celestial Star Lord. Who's the one on your side? Dugu Yenner asked while fighting. With their cultivation and strength, one of them was no match for the other. But when they joined hands, they could easily turn the tables. What's more, with the tacit understanding they had over the years, and the spirit-united heart technique, they gradually suppressed the enemy in front of them. They chatted while fighting, but they didn't delay anything. Instead, they increased the psychological pressure on the other side. My opponent is Civil Star Lord. Yuemo Yin said. He's very powerful. Don't take him lightly. I know. Dugu Yenner said. I almost suffered a great loss in the hands of these people. How can I not be careful? On the opposite side, Civil Star said nothing. He looked elegant and calm. Even though he was at a disadvantage in the battle, he was still leisurely, as if he were taking a stroll in a courtyard. The battle continued. After exchanging a few hundred blows, the outcome of the battle was still unclear. However, with the arrival of an expanse of extreme coldness, the outcome of this battle was no longer suspenseful. Zhou Xiaoyan was like a fairy from the heavens, arriving gracefully. Civil Star Lord withdrew his sword and stepped back with a faint smile. It's really my doom. He was still relaxed and his smile was not fake. Civil Star Lord was calm and said slowly, the plan I set in the past was to leave some seeds in advance, in the hope of returning to the ancestral land and gathering glory again. I once said that the cycle of this plan was too long. It lasted for ages and was full of risks. Even if it could arrive smoothly, it was inevitable that its strength would be insufficient. Once it died, there would be no return, and it would lead to the weakening of the other side. I'm afraid that because of this, my 15 brothers will no longer have a foothold in the heavenly court. At that time, my eldest brother wanted to achieve a miraculous achievement, so he insisted on this plan. Today it seems that what I said was true. This is not an opportunity between the north and the south, but the calamity of the southern dipper and the calamity of the northern dipper. Zhou Xiaoyan raised her long sword and said, Civil Star, Zhou Xiaoyan is here to learn from you. Civil Star Lord laughed and said, if the three of you work together, I will die for sure. You don't have to flatter me with your words. Zhou Xiaoyan frowned slightly. What do you want? Since it's a situation of certain death, how can Literati Star die like an ordinary person, covered in blood and flesh? Wouldn't that be a disgrace to the name of Literati? He laughed loudly. From now on, I'll abandon the universe and turn into a floating star. I won't hold the knife for the heavenly courts. I'll just see if I'm sincere or not. Before he finished speaking, Civil Star Lord suddenly sat cross-legged on the ground. Starlight burst out from his body and a shadow appeared. However, the shadow also disappeared in the next moment. Civil Star Lord's aura completely disappeared from the world. Only a pen was left in the air. It was a very small pen, about the size of an embroidery needle. It slowly fell to the ground. Zhou Xiaoyan waved her hand, and the pen fell into her hand. She put it into the space ring and said, Yu Moyan, take the Dragon of Luck. We have to go to other places. Okay. The possessed person fell to the ground unconscious. Zhou Xiaoyan didn't care about him. Civil Star Lord left on his own, so the possessed person had great luck. If he could wake up safely, not only would he recover his consciousness, but he would also get the memory fragments left by Civil Star Lord. Although it was just a fleeting memory, it was still a great benefit. However, Yu Moyan didn't let him go. After taking the Dragon of Luck, he chopped it into 2 pieces. Yu Moyan hated traitors the most in his life. This person was obviously a student of Ancestral Dragon High School, and a disciple of a big family. However, he was possessed by a demon star. If he didn't have any evil thoughts, how could he do that? Therefore, Yu Moyan didn't let him off and killed him with his sword. Let's go. On the other side, Li Zhongming and Wan Li Xiu, who had rushed over to help, were fighting another star sovereign. Just as they were gradually gaining the upper hand, Xiang Chong and Zhang Xuejuan charged in together. The 4 joined forces. Zhang Xuejuan's fighting strength was off the charts. She could almost defeat a Star Lord by herself. It didn't take long for the battle to end. It was one of the few battles in the heavenly Tao that Zhou Xiaoyan and her brother didn't participate in. Then, the 4 divided into 3 groups and went to help. The Star Lord killed by Li Zhongming and Wanli Xiu was the master of Southern Dipper Palace, Silu's Star Lord. Compared to the army-destroying greedy wolf and the other star monarchs, this celestial minister Silu's Star Monarch was naturally weaker. When he first came down, he encountered Li Zhongming and was somewhat surprised in his heart. It was a wonder that the astral soul's youth had such a high cultivation at such a young age. However, he was still able to suppress Li Zhongming. The battle also proved his judgment. Although Li Zhongming was also at the peak of the flying heaven realm and had compressed his vital essence several times, he still couldn't defeat the Silu Star Lord. It was fine for him to fight for a while, but if the battle dragged on he would definitely lose. Fortunately, not long after Wanli Xiu rushed in, the two geniuses in the eyes of the Silu Star Lord were fighting him to a standstill. Then for some reason Li Zhongming started to doze off. The more he fought, the more tired he became. In the end, he just lay on the ground and fell asleep. However, Wanli Xiu didn't mind at all. She didn't even scold him. Instead, she used all her strength to block all of the Silu Star Lord's attacks. It was as if she was afraid that the Silu Star Lord would disturb Li Qingming's sleep. Silu Star Sovereign was also an experienced great cultivator, so how could he not know that there was something fishy going on? Following that, he felt that he was showing signs of drowsiness, and the drowsiness was getting worse and worse. He couldn't even open his eyes and wanted to sleep badly. His eyes were drowsy, and his whole body was extremely tired. He waved his sword and was beaten by Wanli Xiu. The Silu Star Lord knew that he had fallen into a trap. However, he couldn't wake up. The more he fought, the more tired he became. It wasn't that he didn't try to stab himself in the leg. However, he was still so tired that his eyes started to secrete mucus. Fuck, what kind of martial art is this? Could it be a dream Dao technique? The Silu Star Lord felt so sullen and shocked that he wanted to die. Wanli Xiu was very clear about Li Zhongming's methods. In the past, she had been dealt with by him many times. At this moment, she was not affected at all. She was full of energy as she suppressed the Silu Star Lord and beat him up like a sandbag. Just as she was happily beating him up, Xiang Chong and Zhan Xuejuan came over. Zhan Xuejuan then pierced the Silu Star Lord into a mutton skewer with her spear. It had to be said that Zhan Xuejuan's murderous aura and murderous heart were more than 1,000 times stronger than before. Every move was a sure kill move. That's why Xiaoduo rushed through the thick fog. When he saw people again, it was Li Chenglong and Yu Yan'er. They were sweating profusely as they beat up the person opposite them. Zhou Xiaoduo heaved a sigh of relief when a heavenly secret token flew over. Luckily, he wasn't beaten to death yet. Zhou Xiaoduo wasn't worried about Li Chenglong and the others. Instead, he was worried about the Southern Dipper's #1 star, the Palace Master of the Treasury Star Lord. He had just received 2 drops of Providence points to prove this fact. Zhou Xiaoduo knew that it was enough for one of the Star Lords to be killed. This also caused him to only receive 2 basic Providence points from the person who was possessed. And if the Star Lord died in the hands of others, he naturally wouldn't receive the heavenly secret token. The 700 Providence points that he should have received had flown away forever. That's why Xiaoduo expressed his heartfelt heartache. As stingy as he was, he naturally moved faster and faster. This was because there were already many people who had been released. These guys wouldn't show mercy. As long as they could deal with it themselves, they definitely wouldn't wait for him to deal with it. As long as any 2 of them worked together, they would at least have the strength to fight to a draw, or even kill a Star Lord. Now that he saw a battle between Star Lords, Zhou Xiaoduo, who had rushed out, didn't say anything. He waved his sledgehammer and pounced forward. He activated the 1,000-soul nightmare hammer and smashed it out crazily. Go help others. Li Chenglong shouted. We can handle this. Trust us. Zhou Xiaoduo turned a deaf ear as he rushed forward and entered the battle with a strong momentum. The moment he started, he continuously smashed out 3,600 hammer strikes. How can I not know if you can handle it? I'm not blind. The problem is that if I don't make a move, the 700 points in front of me will fly away again. This really doesn't matter if I trust you or not. That's a lot of Providence points. That a series of 3,600 hammers blasted the fate-ruling Star Lord to dust. 700 Providence points arrived as scheduled. Li Chenglong didn't notice that he was smashed away by Zhuoxiaoduo's hammer. Holding his sword, he said gloomily, I already said that victory is in our hands. Why don't you meddle in other people's business? Why don't you go and help the others first? Stop talking nonsense. Let's end this quickly. There are others. Zhuoxiaoduo didn't explain. He flipped over and said, Don't go all out when you encounter someone difficult to deal with. Fight steadily and wait for me to go over. Li Chenglong could only watch gloomily as Yu Yan, kept the Dragon of Providence. Then, they went their separate ways and headed elsewhere. Who would wait for you if you can handle it? No matter how he looked at it, it felt like she was here to steal the credit. However, what credit could there be? Was there a need to be so anxious? On the other side, Gao Qiaoer met Cheng Qingning. Gao Qiaoer was fine, but Cheng Qingning was a little disappointed. The person she wanted to meet the most was Zhuoxiaoduo. To be able to kill Zhuoxiaoduo was her lifelong pursuit and greatest wish. However, as soon as they exchanged blows, not to mention Zhuoxiaoduo, she was not even a match for Gao Qiaoer. She was almost instantly killed in one move. The reason why it was said to be almost was probably because the Star Lord who had possessed her had hurriedly attacked, allowing her to escape the calamity. Then, the possessed military Star Lord took control of the body and immediately suppressed Gao Qiaoer. Chapter 1249. However, Gao Qiaoer was very smart. After a short fight, she knew that she was no match for him. She saw the opportunity earlier than Wan Lixio, and immediately changed her fighting style. Since she was not strong enough, she would rather use her wits than her strength. She dodged left and right, trying her best to avoid a head-on fight with him. Gao Qiaoer had inherited the Moon Lord body movement, which was extremely flexible and ethereal. With her own cultivation, she could only dodge and fight. Even though the Star Master's cultivation was much higher than hers, he could do nothing to her. The situation was in a stalemate. However, there was a limit to the space. The Star Master was the one who had the most extensive knowledge of martial arts among the Star Masters. He quickly understood Gao Qiaoer's intention and used countless moves to close in on her. Gradually, he compressed the space that Gao Qiaoer could use. In the long run, no matter how slippery Gao Qiaoer was, she would still be defeated and killed in the end. However, Gao Qiaoer's hard work allowed her to hold on for a whole hour, under the endless moves of the Star Master. When Gao Qiaoer was about to be defeated, Zhuoxiaoduo rushed over in an aggressive manner. Zuo, watch out! Gao Qiaoer was overjoyed. She retreated with sweat dripping down her body and shouted, He is the Star Master of the Star Master. His moves are very complicated. Zhuoxiaoduo took out a Tianji order and said with a smile, Don't worry. He has thousands of moves. I will smash him to death with my hammer. Zhuoxiaoduo. A woman's voice full of resentment came from the woman possessed by the Star Master of the Star Master. Ning Qingcheng. It's you. Zhuoxiaoduo smiled faintly. You barely escaped with your life, but you came here to die. You brought this upon yourself. You can't blame me for this. Forgive me for not sending you off on the road to the underworld. Ning Qingcheng said angrily. Even if you kill me, I will be reunited with the Ning family in hell. It's better than being an orphan in this world. As she spoke, she had already wiped off her makeup, revealing her devastatingly beautiful face. Even Gao Qiaoer couldn't help but feel pity for such a peerless beauty in front of her. This woman was simply too beautiful. She was almost at the level of little Nian's sister-in-law. However, Zhuoxiaoduo didn't have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. He didn't have any cells in him that would show mercy to a woman. In other words, other than Zhuoxiaonian and a few other beautiful women, Zhuoxiaoduo was the only one who could make Zhuoxiaoduo unable to lay his hands on. Not a single one. Saying that Zhuoxiaoduo had a heart of steel was just a compliment. He was practically a heartless guy. I'm face-blind. I can't tell if a woman is beautiful or not, Zhuoxiaoduo once said in a casual conversation. At that time, Long Yuxing and the others were all there. Everyone asked, Then do you think little Nian is beautiful? Zhuoxiaoduo said shamelessly. I really can't tell. If she hadn't pursued me since I was a child, how could she have beaten me? Anyway, I'm going to have a family, so I'll just put up with it. She's the one. As for whether she's beautiful or not, it doesn't matter." When Zhou Xiaoduo said this, he crossed his legs in a smug and high-spirited manner. Then he was scolded. It didn't matter that he was scolded. Zhou Xiaoduo relied on his tyrannical strength to beat up everyone present. Then he snatched the phone and deleted all the recorded video and audio. So, according to Zhou Xiaoduo, whether Ning Qingqing was beautiful or not, he couldn't see it. Cough. But whether she was beautiful or not, she deserved to die here. Hurry up and turn it into a lot of luck points for me. Then, Zhou Xiaoduo rushed up with his hammers. "I'll smash your head into pieces. Let's see if you're beautiful or not." Military Star was indeed a martial artist. When he fought with Zhou Xiaoduo felt an unusually huge pressure. It was almost the same as when he fought with Greedy Wolf Star. However, after receiving thousands of luck points, Zhou Xiaoduo was no longer the Zhou Xiaoduo who fought with Greedy Wolf before. He went all out as soon as he started fighting. With a shake of his hand, he sent thousands of luck points. The battle between Zhou Xiaoduo and Military Star lasted for more than half an hour. Gao Qiao not only couldn't get involved in this fierce battle, but also had to cover her ears and hide far away. Her face was full of pain. As the battle continued, the shockwaves created by the two of them became more and more intense. The entire space had been shattered countless times. With Gao Qiao's current cultivation base, she couldn't withstand it. To be fair, Military Star's combat experience and skills were much better than Zhou Xiaoduo's. Zhou Xiaoduo couldn't compare with him in terms of timing and control. It was only in terms of strength that he was at a complete disadvantage. But this alone was enough to make the Star Lord shut himself in. As the battle continued, he became more and more compatible with the body he had taken over. He could unleash his full power. His cultivation base and strength were at the pinnacle of the Dao integration pinnacle stage. Against a pinnacle of the Sky Soar realm, he had to combine his skills, experience, and timing. He had the upper hand in every aspect. Even with so many advantages, he was at a disadvantage in terms of offensive strength. He couldn't win. How are you going to reason with this? Just how powerful was this kid's foundation to be able to create such an unreasonable situation? After an hour or so of battle, Military Star was truly at a disadvantage. There was no way he could turn the tables. He was already fighting with all his might, but his opponent's hammer was simply too heavy. It was so heavy that Military Star was planning to exhaust his opponent to death with his skills and abilities. Even if he had to overcome 10 opponents with brute strength, he was going to overcome them with skill. That was what he thought, and that was what he did. Moreover, no matter which senior expert, based on their experience, knowledge, and vision, what he was doing was the most suitable for the current situation. It was also the strategy that could turn the situation around and defeat the enemy, and win the battle. However, Military Star adopted the most appropriate strategy to exhaust himself to death. All of his cultivation base had been completely drained. His opponent, whom he wanted to exhaust to death, was still full of energy. His face was ruddy, and he was still fighting fiercely. He didn't look like he had been through a life and death battle for such a long time. Instead, he looked like he had just eaten a great tonic. At this moment, seeing that his opponent was unable to continue, Zhou Xiaoduo finally unleashed Zhu Rong's true fire. The flame soared to the sky. After a few consecutive battles, Zhou Xiaoduo's benefits could be said to be incomparable. He was like a huge dry sponge, absorbing the experience and skills of the Celestial Lords tirelessly. He was like a whale sucking in the ocean, and even sucking the marrow out of their bones. For Zhou Xiaoduo, this was an extremely rare opportunity. If he were to forget himself and go a little crazy, then so be it. If any one of the 15 Celestial Lords were to fight Zhou Xiaoduo, they would be able to squash him to death with just 2 fingers. It would be no more difficult than squashing an ant. However, at this moment, they had thrown themselves into the heavenly Dao pattern and possessed their bodies. Every single one of their cultivations was in an extremely awkward state. Dao integration pinnacle stage. Under the heavenly Dao, where the highest cultivation base limit was the Skysore Pinnacle stage. This level of cultivation base should be enough to control the entire situation and resolve all obstacles. However, no one would have thought that Zhuo would be able to defeat an opponent of a higher cultivation base than himself. There was more than one person like Zhuo. Everyone in Zhuo's group was at the Skysore Pinnacle stage, and their combat prowess had exceeded that level. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to stall for time until reinforcements arrived. However, in the eyes of the Celestial Lords, this was an absolutely insane and inconceivable reality. What they didn't know was that to Zhuo, they could be said to be the most suitable, and the most convenient whetstones. Zhuo was at the Skysore Pinnacle stage, and his cultivation base was even more powerful than theirs, which was at the Dao Integration Pinnacle stage. Furthermore, all of their techniques and experiences were completely useless in the face of Zhuo's massive hammers and overwhelming strength. Aside from instilling techniques and experiences into Zhuo, all of their techniques and experiences were completely useless in the face of Zhuo's overwhelming power. His demonic power was gone, and his bonded weapon was gone. That the crushing victory that he had envisioned had occurred, except he was the one being crushed. After Zhuo's frenzied hammer strikes reached 12,000 times, Military Star Lord finally retreated with blood gushing from his mouth. He had reached his limit. Zhuo continued to press his advantage, and Zhu Rong's true flames burned even more fiercely. The Starry Sky Indestructible Stone also appeared, and Military Star Lord was about to be sentenced to death. "Stop!" Military Star Lord roared. "I'll dissipate on my own. Don't damage her body." Zhuo mercilessly hammered down 300 times. Who would have thought that the Celestial Lord would be so protective of the fairer sex? "It's a pity that I'm not." Ning Qingqing's voice also sounded. "Zhuo, I have something to ask you." "No need." Zhuo charged forward. "You've wasted too much time. I don't want to hear any information from you, and I have no obligation to tell you." "What? About love?" He enunciated the last 4 words one at a time. It was as if the sky was falling. Ning Qingqing's enchanting body had been hammered into pieces, her flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Gao Qiaoer's mouth twitched. Such a peerless beauty was not treated well by Zhuo. That as soon as Military Star Lord Starlight burst out, Zhuo caught up with him. Without even giving him a chance to speak, Zhuo hammered him to death with 99 strikes. Boom! After the last strange explosion, there was only a deep sigh. I regret not listening to Wen Chu's words. As expected, the 700 drops of Providence points arrived on time. Chapter 1250. After Ning Qingqing's death, a hazy aura of Providence also appeared, just like Meng Qintian's. However, it was even more chaotic than the one that appeared after Meng Qintian's death. After all, Ning Qingqing had only recently joined the sect. In fact, the best person for this operation was Mo Xuanyi. Unfortunately, ever since Mo Xuanyi went missing, they couldn't find him again. They had no choice but to let Ning Qingqing take his place. Although it wasn't to the extent of making up the numbers, she wasn't the best choice. At this point, 10 out of the 15 Celestial Lords of the Southern Dipper and Northern Dipper were dead. The situation of the battle was extremely tragic. After another hour, Zhuo Xiaoyan and Zhen Piapiao killed Celestial Lord Longevity, Celestial Lord of the Southern Dipper Heaven Palace. Zhuo led the others to kill Celestial Lord of the Southern Dipper Heaven Palace, and Celestial Lord of the Zuofudong, Celestial Lord of the Southern Dipper Heaven Palace. Zhan Xuejuan performed a hat trick and killed Celestial Lord of the Southern Dipper Heaven Palace. Finally, Celestial Lord of the Southern Dipper Heaven Palace was killed by Li Chenglong, Pai Yibao, and the others. Finally, they killed a Celestial Lord and didn't get shaved bald. The 15 Celestial Lords of the Southern Dipper were all wiped out. The 4 pawns of the Wang family, 2 in the open and 2 in the dark, all had forbidden drugs on them. They exploded in the land of Providence, hoping to succeed. However, in the face of Zhuo's group, who could even kill 15 Celestial Lords at the pinnacle of the Dao Integration Pinnacle stage, They were like mayflies trying to shake a tree. They were quickly killed one by one. Zhou Xiaoyan had been trying to find Lan Bingrui from the beginning. Unfortunately, she couldn't find her in the end. Instead, Zhang Xuejuan, who didn't know Lan Bingrui, found her and fought for the Dragon of Providence. In the end, Lan Bingrui was seriously injured, and Zhang Xuejuan obtained the Dragon of Providence. This was one of the few battles in this battle that didn't result in casualties. Under the influence of the Heavenly Dao layout and the Star Dipper Heaven Palace, everyone's bad habits were infinitely magnified. In particular, their envy, jealousy, and hatred towards Zhou Xiaoduo and the others were magnified to the extreme. This also caused Zhou Xiaoduo and the others to be targeted the most in the competition. It's just because of his identity as the son of the Heaven Inspecting Minister. He's the second generation of a super official, a deformed product piled up by connections and resources. What real ability does he have? If my father was a Heaven Inspecting Minister, I would definitely be stronger than him. It had to be said that there was a huge market for people with this kind of mentality. But one thing was for sure. When you think this way, you're already denying all the hard work of others, and even demonizing them. At the same time, he placed himself in a relatively unfair position. Even Li Chenglong and the others were interpreted as, it's only because he flattered the son of the Sky Inspecting Minister. So he became a lackey who flatters his smelly feet and follows him everywhere. That's why he got some solid trash. This kind of bootlicker is the most disgusting. Are they the only ones in the world who know how to flatter others? Why is it that I can't catch up to those bootlickers even though I've worked so hard? If it were me, with the same amount of resources and benefits, I would definitely be better. There was a huge market for this kind of mentality. With this kind of distorted mentality, it was magnified many times in a specific environment. It was fine if they didn't meet Zhou Xiaoduo and the others. But if they did, they would rush up to bite and fight like red-eyed hungry wolves. But this also led to Zhou Xiaoduo and the others to gain more and more. It had to be said that this was really a very ironic and thought-provoking thing. The so-called thought-provoking was probably because this kind of thing was too common and too marketable in this world. They didn't think about one thing. Even if someone else was the son of the minister and took advantage of them, what did it have to do with them? Or they asked themselves, should the son of the minister be taken care of? When such a question was put forward, even if it was asked face to face, the answer would be very clear. It has nothing to do with me. The son of the minister should be taken care of. This was a truth that didn't need to be said. Everyone understood this truth. But in this place it became the original sin. Even if it was because of the environment, there were still some unbearable things that existed in human nature. In the whole group of dragons fighting over the earth veins, there were a total of 36 dragons of providence that rushed out of the earth veins. Zhou Xiaoduo didn't take much and only obtained 9 dragons. And most of them were those who dared to rob him. If Zhou Xiaoduo let go of the frequency of robbing, with his speed and combat strength, he would be able to collect at least 15 dragons. Although Zhou Xiaoyan's method was similar to Zhou Xiaoduo's, there were also people who wanted to rob her. After such a series of battles, the dragons of providence automatically entered her body. In the end, she also collected 6 dragons. Li Chenglong also had 2 dragons of providence. As for the others, such as Long Yuxing and the others, each of the 12 people had 1 dragon. Zhou Yinqing took 1 dragon. The imperial family took 1. If Zhou Yinqing was also a member of Zhou Xiaoduo's group, then Zhou Xiaoduo and the others would have collected a total of 30 dragons of providence. Even if Zhou Yinqing wasn't counted, Zhou Xiaoduo and the others still had a huge share of 29 dragons. Such a number, such a proportion, was simply terrifying. With the death of all 15-star monarchs, the dragons of providence had their own masters. There was no need to fight for the group of dragons fighting over the earth veins. However, the power of the earth veins continued to surge out, that although it could no longer take the form of a dragon, this power was still not to be underestimated. It was just that few people could use it. Although it was difficult to use people, Xiaolong was not in this category. He meandered in the air and transformed into a huge figure that occupied tens of thousands of meters of land. No matter where the earth veins appeared, he would swallow them all in one gulp. This situation made Xiaolong so happy that he felt that his dragon life had reached the peak. Especially after Zhou Xiaoduo gave him a few more drops of Didi. Xiaolong's satisfaction and happiness soared and directly exploded. His sense of loyalty soared to a super level of tens of thousands in one go. Since ancient times, which boss had treated his underlings so well? Only Zhua. Only Zhua. Long live boss, long live boss, long live boss, long live boss. Xiaolong shouted silently in the sky. On the other side of the distant starry sky, in the Big Dipper War Palace, a total of 9 mighty figures were unprecedentedly weak, directly causing the abnormal phenomena in the sky. Everyone in the Big Dipper War Palace panicked. How could the 9 bosses have fainted at the same time? Moreover, their cultivation base was dropping like a waterfall. The War Palace immediately reported this situation. After many mighty figures came to check, but to no avail. The Kuanping Demon Master personally came to see what was going on. In the end, before he could figure out what was going on, he received a new report saying that the same thing happened in the South Dipper War Palace, and requested the Demon Master to take a look. The Kuanping Demon Master's mind spun as he connected the dots and quickly understood everything. He stood up and sighed. North and South Dipper Killing Formation. Dipper Killing Formation. With a sigh, he floated away. After entering the Demon Emperor Palace, the Crown Prince, who was in charge of the Demon Emperor Palace, came to inquire. The Demon Master only sighed and said, "The South Dipper and North Dipper's battle power has been crippled. If you don't want them to be humiliated by despicable people, please give the order, Crown Prince, to let them enjoy the rest of their lives." Upon hearing this, all the great demons were stunned. Their eyes and faces were filled with disbelief. A million years of hard work has now been destroyed. Furthermore, the South Dipper and North Dipper stars in the sky, after the 15 Dipper soul extraction, have already broken free from the Heavenly Court's control. The star heart is free. From now on, the Heavenly Court is not complete, and the stars in the sky are not complete. The Demon Master sighed. This is fate. The backlash after forcefully going against the will of the heavens is fate. Master. The Crown Prince's handsome face was filled with indignation. Is there any way to remedy this? If the 2 majesties are not in seclusion now, and are still clear-headed, perhaps, in the name of the Orthodox Heavenly Court, they can use the Donghuang Bell and the Book of Luo to suppress their providence. They can use the Emperor's might to subdue the stars and maintain the integrity of the sky. Then, the 15 Dipper sovereigns can split their souls and place them in the South Dipper and North Dipper positions again. But the 2 majesties have been in seclusion for many years. In the future, after a few years of rest, the stars will be able to operate according to the ancient laws and form their own system. The 15 Dipper sovereigns will be connected and stretch across the sky. Even if the majesties wake up, it will be too late. The Demon Master sighed, and a hint of sadness flashed across his face. When there was finally some hope of returning to the ancestral land, the Dipper sovereigns, who had always been the top fighting force of the demon race, actually made such a huge mistake. This current situation, filled his heart with uneasiness. He had just tried to calculate the heavenly secrets, but he realized that the heavenly secrets were in a state of chaos and could not be calculated at all. No matter how he looked at it, it was just a sea of confusion, that he did not know if this was the aftereffect of defying the will of the heavens or some other sign. Let's find the direction first. We'll talk about everything after we return. The dazzling hall fell into a state of silence. In the capital of the astral souls, in the slums. Although they were nominally subordinate to the Umno Alliance, in reality, they were still the leaders of the demon race. At this moment, all of them were bathed in blood. The 15 of them were constantly vomiting blood, and their bodies were dripping with blood. Their auras were also constantly slipping. However, the loss of their cultivation bases and the pain of their bodies were far from comparable to the pain in their hearts. They looked at each other, and they were all at a loss in despair and in disbelief. They had failed. The star sovereigns had all fallen. How was this possible? How could this happen? They had clearly pried open the heavenly Tao structure, and everything was clearly under their control. The star sovereigns, who were at the pinnacle of the Tao integration stage, had entered the bodies that they had prepared long ago. The bodies had all been turned against them, and would not resist, causing the star sovereigns to be unable to unleash their full strength. Everything had been calculated meticulously and meticulously. It should have been like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife, and flying dragons riding on the face. But they had actually failed. How could they have failed? Star sovereigns. A total of 15 star sovereigns had disappeared without a trace? All gone. Chapter 1251. After a long time, everyone stood up weakly and looked at each other. Their faces were filled with despair, and they didn't know what to do. His face was equally bleak and devoid of color. A few of them had just stood up, but they immediately sat back down and continued to vomit blood. Their cultivation bases had plummeted by 95%. Their soul consciousness and soul power had also plummeted like a falling cliff. They fell to the bottom of the sea, and this kind of weakening couldn't be recovered through simple healing. Now, everyone's condition was even worse than when they were fatally injured. We're completely defeated. We have to leave this place immediately. Granny Tan Lang tried to stand up, but her legs were still trembling. We can't stay here for long. Everyone also struggled to stand up. They had failed. Their life's efforts had all gone down the drain. But they still had a life. Their lives were more important than their life's efforts, that they couldn't lose it. Only by preserving their lives could they talk about the future. They still had a lot of knowledge and countless secret techniques related to the Starry Sect. Previously, in order to complete the mission in one fell swoop, they sacrificed all the disciples around them. Now, other than themselves, there was no one else left in the Astral Souls continent. Even if it was for the inheritance of the Starry Sect, they had to survive and prolong their feeble existence. As long as they could return alive, there would naturally be a way to heal their injuries and revive the Starry Sect. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly flashed, and another figure appeared in the courtyard. It was a young man. At this moment, he was pacing slowly with his hands behind his back. Everyone, you've reached the end. Going against the heavens and breaking the rules, there will be a backlash. I'm here to welcome you to the final destination. Who are you? Everyone's eyes were filled with fear. This young man seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Everyone's cultivation, divine sense, and soul power were all exhausted, but they still had their eyesight. However, when the young man suddenly appeared, even though he was right in front of them, and they could see him clearly, they still felt that he was just a mass of air. Such a cultivation level. Hehe. I'm Yudongtian, also known as the Heavenly King of the Right. Yudongtian smiled faintly. I thought I was here to receive 15 sect leaders. I fought so hard that my pants fell off. In the end, it turned out to be 15 trash like you. Is it fun to play with the will of the heavens? What he said was completely true. Yudongtian was truly very disappointed at this moment. If he had known that there would only be 15 Yuanian cultivators at most, why would he need to send the Heavenly King of the Right personally? It was too degrading. However, he had personally witnessed the deaths of so many Tao integration stage, Soar Heavens cultivators, in the Star Slaughter formation. If he didn't make this trip himself, what would he do if another batch of Tao integration stage cultivators were killed? Therefore, he volunteered to defeat Yun Zhonghu and defeated by Yun Duo, and finally got this cushy job. Now it seemed bullshit. Heavenly King of the Right. Upon hearing this name, Granny Tan Lang and the others, who were barely holding their bodies up, couldn't continue anymore. They all collapsed to the ground. The Heavenly King of the Right personally made a move. Wasn't he thinking too highly of them? Could it be that the Heavenly King of the Right usually had so much free time? They indeed didn't know that the Heavenly King of the Right was frightened by their Star Slaughter formation. Yudongtian sighed. With a wave of his sleeve, he had already swept up the 15 people and left. He didn't even want to say a word. He originally wanted to make a big contribution, but in the end, there might still be some contributions, But with just these few people, just the fact that he personally made a trip here was already a huge loss. Okay, how embarrassing. This was clearly something that could be settled by sending Hua Yun here. What a mess. It was too degrading. Just as the heavenly king of the right took away the 15 people, at the bottom of the Death Soul Cliff, just as that monster was grievously healing himself, suddenly, starlight exploded, and balls of destiny energy descended from the sky. That monster couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw this. It was actually the power of virtue. This was too surprising. Could it be that my actions during this period of time had actually made the heavens happy and accumulated so much merit? Oh my God! After so many years of patience and cultivation, there was finally a result. I, Zhu Yan, am now a beast with merit. Sob, sob, sob. I'm so touched. The heavenly Tao is indeed fair. There's a reward for every effort. The more miserable it was before, the more generous the reward was now. Just as it was looking forward to the power of virtue descending on its body, that thick mass of destiny energy, which was almost materialized, finally descended on its head. That monster Zhu Yan couldn't wait to raise its head and open its mouth, sucking hard. It couldn't suck. Why couldn't it suck? It stuck out its long tongue and tried to lick. I couldn't lick. No, I don't believe it. I'll lick again. I'll lick hard. I'll lick with all my might. After repeated attempts, there was no result. That monster Zhu Yan was even more confused. I'm the only living person in this place. Since my merit is here, it wouldn't be aimless. How could it be? All of a sudden, the power of providence began to spin rapidly and shrank. Then, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. It seeped down. From one side of its face. Seeped down. That monster's eyes, which were as big as the room, followed the power of virtue and looked down. Its eyes were full of confusion. Below its chin was the cocoon formed by its blood, inner core, brain matter, soul power, and elemental energy. A small cocoon. And all that power of providence had actually entered that small cocoon. In an instant, that monster Zhu Yan, who understood the reality before its eyes, was completely confused. It stared at the cocoon at its feet with its eyes wide open. Its eyes were full of despair and confusion. If it had Zhuoxiao's talent, it would probably think of a beautiful melody. Once had, once lost, once had a difficult choice. Years of broken dreams left in its heart, never to fade. Who can tell me? What is what? What is what? What is? Qin Fangyang's long-lost consciousness told himself that his soul had wandered in the sea of stars. He didn't know how many places, and how many centuries, he had experienced. Finally, he felt the existence of his body again. He tried to move. There was no pain in his body. Even the feedback he felt was that his body was intact. And the cultivation in his body had soared tremendously, as if it was about to explode. An extremely large amount of energy surged through his limbs and bones. Every single pore of his body was still squeezing the most powerful energy into his body. Given Qin Fangyang's self-knowledge, if he endured such powerful energy, his small body would definitely explode and die instantly. Moreover, he would die such a miserable death that even his bones wouldn't be left behind. Could it be that the moment I regained my consciousness before the setting sun was to feel the final descent of death? Before he could finish his thought, Qin Fangyang was even more horrified to discover that his meridians seemed to have been strengthened by hundreds of times without him even knowing what was going on. He could clearly feel that his entire body had been reborn. His cultivation was more than 1,000,000 times stronger. His muscles, bones, blood, and flesh were more than 1,000 times stronger. His meridians were more than 1,000 times stronger. His combat power seemed to have increased by more than 1,000 times as well. When he came to this realization, Qin Fangyang's first thought was, "That's great. With such cultivation, I can beat up that little bastard Zhuoxiaoduo. I must beat that little bastard's ass into 4 pieces." Then he realized that his thoughts were a little wrong. That shouldn't be the first thing that came to mind. Yes, there was still revenge. There were also many more important things. I've been framed and ambushed. Will my students come and take revenge on me? If they came and faced those people, wouldn't it be extremely dangerous? And I would be in great danger. When Qin Fangyang thought of this, He was about to flip over and get up, and hurriedly look for that group of students. Then he was stunned to find out. Where was he? Something that looked like cotton had wrapped around his entire body. What was going on? He tried to reach out and use a little strength. He felt as if he could tear it apart, but what was he waiting for? He gathered all his strength. Rip! Qin Fengyang tore apart the huge cocoon that was wrapped around the outside. After tearing it apart, it seemed as if something was pouring into his body. On the other hand, the thing that was torn apart by him was actually like flowing water that flowed along his skin and drilled into his body. Then, it transformed into an extremely surging energy that flowed throughout his entire body. And his cultivation actually improved once more. Fuck. What was going on? Qin Fengyang sat up and was lost in his thoughts. I seem to have encountered some incredible things. Every single one of them is beyond my understanding. Then, he felt that something even more wrong was coming one after another. The moment he raised his head slowly, he saw 2 eyeballs that were at least as big as a room, hanging above him. It was as if he was looking into a mirror. He could clearly see his own face and figure in those huge eyeballs. Damn. Qin Fengyang was after all a teacher. Even though he was in such an awkward situation, he still couldn't say those words. He immediately said, "Damn it, what is this thing?" Then, he could clearly see that the expression in those huge eyeballs was even more human. It was originally filled with depression, grievance, confusion, grievance, and confusion. Now, there was an addition of innocence, anger, and anger but not daring to say anything. What was going on? I was obviously the one who was shocked. What are you feeling wronged for? What are you angry about? I was unconscious all this time. How did I offend you? Do you have to show such an expression? Chapter 1252. Greatly shocked, Qin Fengyang leaped up and felt as if his body was floating. With just a raise of his qi, he had already flown several tens of thousands of feet away. What? When did I become so powerful? It was only then that he saw the monster's full appearance that could be seen from the outside. This was actually an unimaginably huge, demonic beast. Just its eyeballs were as big as a room. Then how big was its entire body? One could only imagine the size of a gigantic giant venomous snake. But why was I under this thing's chin? Who could explain it to me? At this moment, a clear spiritual power finally came. Human, you're awake? No need to be confused, I saved you. You saved me? Qin Fengyang could not help but ask subconsciously. So many unforeseen events had struck him at once, causing him to be completely unable to think. He had even neglected the fact that he had clearly suffered a fatal injury. Not only had he not died, but he had also been reborn. His cultivation base had increased explosively to a level that was completely unimaginable, and unimaginable. If he didn't have a fortuitous encounter, he definitely wouldn't be able to achieve such an effect. Yes, you're my benefactor. The demonic beast's spiritual power was vast, and its words were clear and accurate. But this sentence made Qin Fengyang's brain more and more blank. That I'm his benefactor? How could this be? Where did it come from? Shouldn't the correct way of saying it was his benefactor, his savior? How could it be reversed all of a sudden, and he became his benefactor? In the gloomy explanation of the demonic beast Zhu Yan, Qin Fengyang finally understood the ins and outs of the whole thing. For a moment, he didn't know whether he should say that he was lucky or unlucky this time. Thinking back to that day, he had exploded 5 doppelgangers, and his cultivation was almost completely destroyed. Finally, he fought for a sliver of time and jumped off the cliff. The person chasing after him also reacted quickly. Seeing that he couldn't catch up, he still threw the weapon in his hand, causing my injuries to worsen. My last thought was that I was going to die, and this guy had lived under the cliff for God knows how many years. My seriously injured body directly fell into this guy's mouth. Then this guy not only didn't eat me, but also worshipped me. If I didn't misunderstand, it should be like this? And it even let me eat its essence, flesh, inner core, brain matter. This demonic beast was so generous. These were also things that could be used to treat guests. Why can't I believe it? Also, this demonic beast treated me so well. So how did I become his benefactor? Facing Qin Fangyang's gaze, the demonic beast didn't find it strange, and began to explain that he explained it over and over again. Qin Fangyang finally understood the whole story. So that's how it is. But then he remembered that he had to go out immediately. I can't stay here any longer. You're going out? The demonic beast suddenly became excited. Then can you take me out with you? Take you out? Qin Fangyang estimated that this guy's body was at least the size of an entire residential area. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How was he supposed to bring her along? Don't worry. I can become small, very small. Zhu Yan was immediately in high spirits. He had truly had enough of staying at the bottom of this cliff. I want to get out. The world is so big. I want to go to Hong Kong. It can become smaller. Very small. How small exactly? Qin Fangyang's eyes widened. He couldn't refuse. Even if the demonic beast said that he was his benefactor, Qin Fangyang asked for it. The demonic beast was his savior, so the demonic beast was his benefactor. If he couldn't even fulfill such a small request, it couldn't be justified. But the key was the problem of how small he could become. After all, this demonic beast's body was simply too big. When he said that it was small, if it was only small in his opinion, or quite big, then it was a gigantic beast whose eyeballs were as big as a house. Zhu Yan immediately became happy. With a sway of its body, its huge body visibly shrank. With another sway of its body, it shrank even further. A circle of poisonous fog sprayed out, and another circle of poisonous fog sprayed out. Qin Fangyang stood in the poisonous fog, completely unharmed. He didn't even feel any discomfort. Finally, after Zhu Yan shook its butt for more than 100 rounds, it finally raised its head. Is this okay? It raised its big eyes and looked at Qin Fangyang, sighing dejectedly. Seems like it's still not okay. Qin Fangyang was speechless for a while. In terms of body size, you are a lot smaller than before, which is an eye-opener for me. But your body is bigger than a 3-room house now, so of course it's still not okay. How can I enter Shangjing with you? We'll be attacked at the first opportunity, and they'll think that I'm up to no good and have ulterior motives. Zhu Yan sighed with extreme grievance. If this still doesn't work, then I'll transform into your human form, okay? As it said this, it sniffled as if it had been wronged. Qin Fangyang's heart suddenly surged with emotions. That you can fucking transform? What are you waiting for? Don't tell me that transforming into a human form makes it look like I'm mistreating you? The fog rose again, and in an instant, a muscular man of about 2.7 meters appeared in front of Qin Fangyang. His body was full of muscles, and his head was bumpy. There wasn't a single strand of hair on his head, and he was naked from head to toe. The huge thing below his crotch was swinging. How about this? Is it okay? Zhu Yan flashed its muscles with a smug look on its face. It bent its arms, turned its body to one side, and exerted some force. Immediately, a muscular butt bulged out. Cough. Qin Fangyang felt like his eyes were going blind. I still have to block it. Qin Fangyang pointed somewhere. If you go out like this, you'll definitely be arrested for indecent behavior. What the? Zhu Yan was shocked. Then, it took a deep breath. It directly used its spiritual energy to compress an object, and made a big board. With a smack, it covered its lower body. This should be okay, right? Behind. Qin Fangyang pointed at its butt speechlessly. You also have to block it. Sigh. You humans are so troublesome. Why don't you want to transform? It's because you can't stand these rules and regulations. Zhu Yan muttered with great dissatisfaction. It's obviously such a beautiful and majestic body, full of masculine attractiveness, but you actually have to cover the most majestic part. What a waste of God's gift. Qin Fangyang. Finally, both sides were covered. Qin Fangyang sighed. My space ring is broken. Let's go out first. When we come across a place with human habitation, you can hide first. I'll find a way to get you 2 sets of clothes. Since you want to blend in with the crowd, you have to abide by the human race's rules. Without fixed rules, there's nothing to talk about. Zhu Yan said excitedly. Okay. Before leaving, Zhu Yan opened its mouth and sucked all the poisonous fog, that had accumulated in the canyon over the years into its mouth. Then, it reached out and fished out a round black pearl that was mixed with countless saliva. It handed it over generously. "Noble, this gift is for you." Looking at the sticky saliva on it, and smelling the odor, that was dozens of times more complicated and unpleasant than being exposed to the sun for 4 to 5 days, in an open-air male toilet, in a school with 10,000 students. Qin Fangyang was on the verge of tears. This smell, this was too out of the ordinary. But this seemed to be a good thing. It was even a dream-grade rare treasure. In view of this, Qin Fangyang suppressed his disgust and took the black pearl. "When I seize Wuxiaoduo, I'll give this to him. That kid has never had any moral integrity. This kind of thing can only be used to its fullest potential if it's given to him." Qin Fangyang no longer hesitated. He flew up with Zhu Yan. "Don't mess around when you go out." This was what Qin Fangyang was most afraid of. Look at this thing's big belly. Even if they went out to eat, the people in the neighborhood might not be half full. "Don't mess around." Zhu Yan nodded. "If I say you can't do something, then you definitely can't do it. Can't do it. You have to listen to me. You're my noble. Of course I'll listen to you. You won't go back on your word?" "I won't." Zhu Yan happily walked on the mountain road with its large feet that were 60 yards long. It was inexplicably agitated and only wanted to sing a song. "I Zhu Yan am out. Follow me, my noble." Although I'm not sure if that's the case. The more it thought about it, the more excited it became. It seemed to jump as it walked. Therefore, the board in front of its lower body swung up again and again. When it landed, the board behind its lower body bounced back again. As it walked, the two boards rhythmically slapped its thighs and buttocks. Pa pa pa, pa 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 pa, pa 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 pa, pa pa. Qin Fangyang walked in front with a dark face. I must get him some clothes as soon as possible. It's so embarrassing. I'm a teacher. I have to be a role model. If someone saw this, it would be better if they only saw it. But if they didn't see it, it would be a disaster. At the scene of the dragons fighting for ley lines. Outside, the battle inside had just ended. The ley lines were still gushing out. The Heavenly Dao layout and the Great Star Battle layout had not completely dispersed. Department head Ding and the others were still waiting anxiously. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Rumbled. The dark clouds in the sky immediately became chaotic, boiling endlessly. It was as if the entire sky was a big pot that was boiling and boiling. The extremely intense changes in front of them made everyone speechless. A few dark clouds visible to the naked eye collided with each other, as if they were hostile. It was clearly just a collision between clouds. But the result was a violent explosion of lightning and thunder. The mountains and rivers of the 9 prefectures were trembling. Even some of the tall buildings in Shangjing below were on the verge of collapse. Everyone was trembling with fear. The feeling it gave them was the heavens were furious, or the heavens were fighting, and it seemed to be fighting with all its might. It was a hysterical fight. Chapter 1253. Finally, there was a deafening sound high in the sky. A deep dragon's roar and a clear phoenix's cry sounded at the same time. Then there was a riot of colors in the sky. It was extremely beautiful. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. A dragon's roar shook the sky. They all clearly saw a huge golden dragon of unknown length suddenly leaping out of the clouds. In an instant it spanned thousands of miles in the sky. Then it suddenly disappeared. A short while later, in another direction, a phoenix of similar size appeared. It quietly left the clouds and soared into the 9 heavens. At the highest point, it turned into colorful shards and disappeared with the wind. Some kind of angry and depressed interest surged in everyone's heart. They didn't know why, but they just felt depressed. In any case, they couldn't wait to find someone to fight with their lives. Only then could they vent this inexplicable emotion. The clouds crazily released a storm. Then they gradually rose and gradually dispersed. On the ground, the fog that shrouded the dragons also began to sway. It was dense and unceasingly agitated. Bits of starlight began to dissipate. It was obvious that it was being drawn out, or pushed out. As the starlight was being drawn out, The fog became more and more unstable. It's finally going to end. Everyone was on tenterhooks. In the end, who would come out first? A total of 50 people went in. Even if Swishaodua wasn't first, he should at least be in the top 3, right? Even if he wasn't in the top 3, he must be in the top 10. Otherwise, how could the minister live with his face? Time passed little by little. The fog rippled more and more violently. It was as if there was a hurricane blowing. But in fact, there was no wind at all. Finally, with a loud bang, the thick fog suddenly dissipated, revealing a cave entrance. The next moment, under everyone's gazes with their mouths wide open, and their breaths held. Bayu, a figure was the first to be ejected out of the hole. She had a slim figure, and was dressed in white. However, her white clothes were mottled and somewhat unsightly. Could it be Zhuoxiaonian? It's okay. Zhuoxiaoduo can't be first, but Zhuoxiaonian can be first. We're all family. But after that figure was ejected, she actually used a very painful and incomparably embarrassing posture to lie heavily on the ground. There was a scream. With a pu sound, he spat out a large mouthful of blood. He said with extreme hatred, "Zhan Xuejuan, Zhuoxiaoduo, you all deserve to die." Everyone was confused. Only then did they recognize that the beauty who was thrown out was Lan Bingrui. Treat her injuries. The principal of Ancestral Dragon High School shouted before asking, "What's going on?" Lan Bingrui was weak all over, and her face was full of shame. As she got out of the natural pattern of dragons fighting for the vein, the negative state that was magnified suddenly shrank, and her mind became clear again. Her mind also became stable. She lowered her head and did not speak for a long time. Obviously, her state of mind was lost. "Bingrui, how's your harvest?" asked a vice principal of Ancestral Dragon High School. Lan Bingrui wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, she said with grief and indignation, "My harvest was stolen." Snatched away? Everyone was full of doubts. They didn't know where this snatch came from. According to the practice of the dragon race, wasn't it not allowed to snatch from each other? Wasn't it fine to not move after entering, and wait for the dragon of providence to appear and choose the fated person? How could it be snatched away? My dragon of providence was snatched away by Zhan Xuejuan. She's clearly not on the list of participants, but she appeared in it and snatched it with her tyrannical strength. Lan Bingrui fainted after saying that. She had to faint even if she pretended to faint. It was too embarrassing. However, even if she decided to pretend to faint, she still didn't forget to make things difficult for Zhuoxiaoduo and the others. She was obviously hoping to find a reason to save her face. No matter what, as an outstanding genius of the generation, one of the leading figures of the Ancestral Dragon martial arts students, she was snatched away and didn't get it back. This was too unreasonable. Especially when I'm a beauty. The leaders of the Ancestral Dragon High Martial Arts Academy ordered people to carry Lan Bingrui away, with faces full of astonishment. Minister Ding coughed and said, "Principals, this time's dragon sees the heritage is very different from the past. There are many major changes involved. We can't treat it the same way as before." The principals were puzzled. Change? What change? Yes, change. And this change, after the dragon race ends, no one is allowed to leak the news. Those who disobey will be severely punished. Department Head Ding said seriously. Previously, I asked you to dismiss all the students and unrelated personnel, leaving only the 20 of us. The main purpose is to keep this secret as much as possible. Department Head Ding looked at the people present and said calmly, "I can take responsibility and say that once the news gets out, no matter who it is, everyone present will be in trouble." Looking at the crowd, Department Head Ding narrowed his eyes and said lightly, "This is what the higher-ups said. I hope everyone doesn't make a mistake." Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School's people were shocked. What happened that made Department Head Ding say it was so serious? The principal of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School lowered his head and pondered for a long time. Department Head Ding's voice sounded in his ears. "I've sent you the details, but you should keep this to yourself. The matter of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School isn't over yet." There are still many spies. We have to catch them one by one. It's better to be unlucky than unlucky. Remember, it's better to be unlucky than unlucky. The principal lowered his head and didn't seem to react, but his heart was shocked. Spies. Better to be unlucky than unlucky. He actually used these two words. This meant that the problem was so big that even he couldn't do anything about it. He hurriedly sent back a voice transmission. Department head, will the children who participated in this dragon race be in danger? As the principal, he was concerned about the safety of his students. They were the future of this world. Yes, many may have died. Department head Ding said lightly. There were many things and many news that even Department head Ding didn't know about until just now. It was probably because the person who sent him the voice transmission was in a bad mood. In the end, he just sent a document and left without saying anything else. Department head Ding relied on his many years of experience in politics, his powerful reasoning and guessing ability, his knowledge as a top student when he was in school, and the worldly wisdom that he had honed over the years to roughly understand this document. Then he was shocked because of this. If it was according to what was written, the matter was really serious, that if it wasn't for the voice transmission, saying that the principal of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School was trustworthy and needed his help, Department head Ding would still be a tight-lipped gourd. He couldn't and didn't dare to reveal any information. The principal, who knew the severity of the matter, sighed. Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School is going to face a serious reorganization, Department head Ding said. For so many years, the families that took advantage of the benefits of the dragon race must be completely eliminated. The principal murmured, among them. There's the royal family's influence. The royal family's right to speak will be further weakened to the people's livelihood. And these families that took advantage of the benefits will probably be completely suppressed. Department head Ding said faintly. This is the minister's intention. I'm not afraid to tell you that it's also because you've been the backbone of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School for so many years. Moreover, you were once the founder of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School. For so many years, among so many seniors in the school, you're the one who understands the situation the most and can convince the public the most. He hopes that you won't make a mistake on this matter. The old principal sighed softly. I understand. In his heart, there was a faint sadness. After so many years, it was finally time for a reshuffle in Shangjing City. And this time, the scope of the reshuffle would affect at least 10 or 20 families. And they would fall straight to the dust from the top circle of Shangjing City. After a while, the students who participated in the dragon race came out one by one, including Zhou Yunqing. Only 7 people came out. After that, there was no movement. Yunqing, where's Zhou Xiaoduo? The principal asked. They're still inside, right? Zhou Yunqing was at a loss. How did he get ejected? He was clearly talking to Zhou Xiaoduo just now. In the end, he didn't come out. He could only come out in a daze. Yes, Li Chenglong, and the others didn't come out either. Where are the others? The principal's voice trembled. Other than Zhou Xiaoduo, Zhou Xiaonian, Li Chenglong, and the other students from Hidden Dragon Martial Arts High School, the others should have all died. Zhou Yunqing's voice was very heavy. They're all dead? Everyone was shocked. Yes, we've been schemed against by the demons this time. The way to obtain the Dragon of Providence this time is completely different from the past. It has to go through a competition between 2 people. The winner gets Providence, and the loser dies directly. There are many people who use forbidden drugs, and there are also many cases of Star Lords possessing bodies. According to Zhou Xiaoduo, it's the Stargate sect's plan to pry open the dragon race's heavenly Dao pattern to seize the dragon race's providence. Zhou Yunqing said, most of the time, Star Lords possessing bodies happens to the students of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School. I once fought with a Star Lord, and I only obtained the Dragon of Providence after winning by luck. Forbidden drugs? Star Lords possessing bodies? Most of the people who were possessed were students of Ancestral Dragon Martial Arts High School. The principal's body swayed. It was obvious that he couldn't take it anymore. How big of an educational oversight was this for it to be like this? What happened after the possession? After the possession, other than competing for the Dragon of Providence, they would also kill any student they encountered. If it weren't for Zhuo and the others rushing to help, there would only be more deaths. Zhou Yunqing took a deep breath and recalled his tragic battle. And then they were all killed by us. Yes, it should be said that most of the Star Lords who possess bodies and those who use forbidden drugs were all killed by Zhuo and the others. That's good. The old principal asked, how much did you get? Chapter 1254. I got a Dragon of Providence, Zhou Yunqing said. Not bad. The old principal was pleased. What about the others? Other than Lan Bingrui, everyone else should have one, including the one from the royal family. What else? The old principal was curious. There should be more Dragons of Providence this time, right? That's all I know. You'll have to ask Zhuo and the others about the rest. In fact, Zhou Yunqing knew more than the others, but if he said more, it would be tantamount to betraying Zhuo and the others. A total of 4 members of the Wang family went in. The old principal pointed out. Yes, they're all dead. All of them took forbidden drugs, and one of them was killed by me, Zhou Yunqing answered without hesitation. The old principal nodded silently. After Zhou Yunqing left, Xiang Chong and Zhan Xuejuan came out together after a while. It was reasonable for Xiang Chong to come out, but Zhan Xuejuan's appearance made everyone's eyes widen. Although everyone knew about Zhan Xuejuan's existence through Lan Bingrui's explanation, Lan Bingrui was right. This girl was not on the list. More importantly, or rather, a more serious problem. How did she get in? This was not only a violation of the rules, but also a violation of the bottom line. If there was really a way or method to bring people who were not on the list into the dragon fight for the heritage, how could there be rules in the future? But Minister Ding said telepathically, "This is a destined person. Don't expose it." Everyone immediately shut their mouths. Minister Ding, what you said is so profound that we don't understand. But it's okay, just shut up. Minister Ding presided over the situation with an unfathomable expression. But in fact, he was also confused. I don't understand either. What is a destined person? Who can explain it to me? But it's okay if you don't understand. It's a crime to ask. After a long while, Yu Moyan and the others came out in 2s and 3s. In the end, only Zhuo and Zhuo remained. After another hour, Zhuo also came out. Only Zhuo was still inside. According to the rules of the Dragon's Snatching Mountain range in the past, the one who came out the earliest would reap the most rewards. If that was the case, wouldn't Zhuo, who everyone had high hopes for, be the one who gained the least? He might even be the one who did not gain anything at all. When he asked the group of people how much they had obtained on this trip, there was only one answer, and it was the same. 1. There's really only one. When it was Li Qinglong's turn, he said, "Although I want a lot, it seems that each person can only get one." Zhuo also came out. "Xiaonian." Minister Ding smiled kindly. "How many Dragons of Providence did you get?" 1. Zhuo answered seriously and meticulously. Okay, one good. Minister Ding laughed loudly and seemed very satisfied. Then he secretly said, "Xiaonian, tell Uncle Ding, how many did you get?" Zhuo said, "Uncle Ding, it's really only one." Minister Ding, that this girl had learned bad things from Zhuo. Then after another 2 hours, Zhuo came out. "Xiaoduo." Minister Ding laughed. "If I'm not wrong, you must have only gotten one Dragon of Providence too? Uncle Ding, you're really smart." Zhuo exclaimed, "You're so accurate. You're really amazing." Minister Ding's face twitched. Then he smiled kindly. "Are you tired? Go back and have a good rest. Okay. Is there anything else after the dragons snatched the heritage?" Zhuo asked. "No." Minister Ding then asked, "Hey, what about the others? Those who took forbidden drugs deserved to die. But those who were possessed by Lord Tai Bai Jinxing? After Lord Tai Bai Jinxing was annihilated, where did the possessed people go?" "Huh. Possessed by Lord Tai Bai Jinxing? Zhuo was so scared that his expression changed. I didn't see them. How would I know where they went? Why are you asking me? Minister Ding laughed. It's good that you didn't return empty-handed. Ha ha ha. On the side, Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu and the other higher-ups also laughed. Very good, very good. Then, everyone gathered together and started asking questions. Other than Zhou Yunqing, who gave more information, the other 5 people who came out basically didn't know anything. They were really lucky and didn't encounter any strong competitors. After killing the other party, they had been healing or collecting dragons of providence. When it was time they came out. They didn't even notice that Zhuo and the others had entered their space. Lan Bingrui, who was unconscious, was the most miserable. She knew very well who had snatched her, but she had finished talking and was now unconscious and was being treated. As for Xiang Chong and Zhang Xuejuan, they denied all the accusations. I didn't snatch anyone else's. The opponent was very strong. I killed him and got the Dragon of Providence. Then I came out. Li Chenglong and the others were even more sincere. Others? I didn't see them. Wasn't it just 2 people in one area? You got it after defeating them. It's no big deal. I really didn't see anyone else. Then do you know who you defeated? I really don't know. We didn't talk much. I can describe it to you. The process was very simple. Just do it. Don't talk nonsense. Where are they? I don't know. We didn't kill anyone. We didn't kill anyone. We were just a little lucky. That's all. Everyone spoke one by one with an innocent look on their faces. What are you asking? We don't know anything. All the higher-ups were extremely depressed. These little bastards were clearly colluding with each other. However, there was nothing they could do to these guys, who were led by the strongest second-generation Zhuo. Especially when they knew that maybe Zhuo and the others didn't say anything. But there was still a problem among them. Thinking of this, they didn't dare to ask. In the end, Zhuo and the others left Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu without leaving any useful information. Department Head Ding was clearly controlling the pace of the process. Although Department Head Ding was obviously very angry, he was firmly on Zhuo's side from the beginning to the end. Whenever Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu asked a sensitive question, Department Head Wen would jump out at the right time to interrupt. After the routine summary, Zhuo and the others left. Department Head Wen called everyone for a meeting. The old principal was so anxious that his mouth was dry. He said telepathically, Department Head, 50 people went in, but only 23 people came out in the end, including those who didn't have the quota. A total of 27 people are missing. Yes, it's these 27 names. From today onwards, thoroughly investigate their family background and their contact with the outside world during this period of time. Department Head Ding said faintly, the thorough investigation will start from here. Tomorrow, the Martial Arts Department will have a meeting to deploy the operation. The heads of all departments will be present, and the principal of Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu will be present. This time, the dragons fighting for the heritage has come to an end. Department Head Ding hurriedly left as soon as he finished speaking. Many higher-ups of Ancestral Dragon Gao Wu came to the principal to inquire about the situation. Principal, what's the situation? The principal looked old. I don't know. We'll know when the meeting starts tomorrow. Don't worry, this matter is very strange. Principal, did you and Department Head Ding talk for so long, but didn't say anything? A vice principal asked suspiciously. Haha. Since Department Head Ding and I chose to communicate through telepathy, it's only to keep it a secret. If I told you everything, why would I use telepathy? The principal rolled his eyes and looked at the vice principal with the surname Jean. Yes, I was wrong. Humph. The principal left with a displeased expression. Zhuo and the others had already returned to Zhuoxianyan's small courtyard. Wang Lingyun moved a chair and sat at the door. She stretched her neck and waited for a long time. You're back. Seeing that everyone returned unscathed, Wang Lingyun immediately smiled. We're back. Zhuo pondered for a moment and said, the dragons fighting for the heritage has come to an end. I'm afraid the higher-ups will make a move on the Wang family soon. Wang Lingyun, If you have any thoughts, it's not too late to say it now. Wang Lingyun sighed. The country has its laws, the martial arts world has its principles, and the continent has its own rules. I don't have any thoughts. If Grandpa was still alive, he wouldn't ask for mercy. If the Wang family is spared this time, even if it's just a small opening, there will be a precedent. In the future, similar openings will be torn apart in the whole continent. Making a contribution is not to commit crimes in the future. This is what our ancestors said. So, just do whatever you want. Zhou Xiaoduo was silent for a moment and said, Okay, let's digest the results of this trip and launch a full-scale operation later. At this time, Qin Fangyang was already sitting in a private room in a restaurant. He was holding a mobile phone in his hand and wearing a storage ring on his finger. These were the spoils of war that Qin Fangyang had robbed a local gang. Qin Fangyang had never been a pedantic person. It was not difficult for him to use some means to achieve this goal. Moreover, he felt quite at ease about robbing a gang. If he had the ability, why didn't he go to the battlefield? Why did he join a gang? He did not contribute to the country, the people, or the continent, but joined a gang. What's the big deal about robbing a little? Opposite Qin Fangyang was Zhu Yan, who was already wearing the largest size of clothes, but was still so full that both his top and pants were about to burst. The largest cloak in the ready-made clothing store was only half a windbreaker on this guy. Qin Fangyang already knew most of what had happened in Shangjing during this time. Zhou Xiaoduo's sudden arrival and revenge for his master, and then a series of events. Including the Wang family's attitude, the Lu family's attitude, He Yuanyue's true identity. And the matter of He Yuanyue's grave being dug. Chapter 1255. Qin Fangyang did not know what to feel. He was furious for a moment and sighed softly. Wang family, Wang family. Qin Fangyang's eyes shone with a cold light. Up until now, Zhou Xiaoduo and the others had already turned the matter upside down, and everyone knew about it. But as the person involved in the fuse, Qin Fangyang only now knew who his enemy was. The cause and effect, all the reasons. All one needed to do was to search online, and everything would be clear. Xianxian's grave. Qin Fangyang's body emitted a cold aura. Lu family. Qin Fangyang fell silent. His face was calm as he exhaled softly. Huff huff. Delicious. The Zhu Yan grabbed a complete beef thigh bone and put it into its mouth. It chewed and swallowed with loud crunching sounds. It ate heartily, craving for more flavor after tasting it. You can't eat the bones. Qin Fangyang frowned helplessly. Why can't you eat it? Zhu Yan, who really relished the taste, argued. It's crunchy, so delicious, so fragrant. Besides, if you don't eat the bones, the marrow inside will be wasted. Use this. Qin Fangyang said as he handed over a straw. Zhu Yan took it and looked at it. He stuffed it into his mouth and chewed, stretched his neck and swallowed. He shook his head and said discontentedly, How can this be better than beef bones? It has no taste at all. Qin Fangyang was speechless. He looked at the 3 big basins of beef that weighed more than 100 caddies and saw that they were almost finished. Zhu Yan picked up the last basin and went to the boss. I say, you're a businessman. How can you prepare so little? Hurry up and serve more dishes. Cough. Brother, how much more do you want? I'll prepare it for you right away. 3 more cows. 3 first. If it's not enough, we'll talk again. Qin Fangyang quietly turned his back to the window. He took out the phone he snatched and skillfully dialed Zhou Xiaoduo's number. I'm back. Everything will be settled. But before that, Xiaoduo had already stirred up a lot of trouble in order to avenge me. These should not be borne by this child. Qin Fangyang was lost in thought as the phone rang. The Sky Inspector Minister said that he was a close friend of his. So, Zhou Xiaoduo was actually the minister's son. But this thought flashed through his mind. The minister's son. This did not make much of a difference to Qin Fangyang. Zhou Xiaoduo was still Zhou Xiaoduo. He was still that little monkey who made me so angry, and I liked him. When she wanted to teach her a lesson, she would whip her belt to teach her a lesson. Beep. Beep. When Zhou Xiaoduo and the rest returned to the small courtyard, Their hearts were filled with eagerness and eagerness. Heavens know how far they had been able to reach originally, and they did not know how far they had to be. Not know how far the expansion was not know how far the expansion God knows how. Because fate energy was added to the body, it was not just a matter of good luck. It was similar to the effect of Wuxia's fate points. It nourished the body, the soul, and even the meridians. There was nothing that could not be done. The most direct and obvious way of using it was that if Li Chenglong had reached the peak of a realm before this, and could suppress it 12 times, after this infusion, he could suppress it to at least 15 or 16 times. What was even more delightful was that the heavenly providence obtained this time was the so-called Qi of merit. After the dragon's snatching meridians ended, it was directly integrated into the life chart and could no longer be taken away by external forces. Although Li Chenglong and the heavens knew that they had obtained great benefits, they still had to cultivate and experience the specific benefits. Only then could they know and understand. Okay, I know you can't wait. Go and cultivate. Zhou Xiaoduo waved his hand and shooed everyone away as if he was shooing away flies. Amidst the joy, meow meow meow, a series of strange meows came out. It was a meow that was full of coquettishness and complacency, and it suddenly sounded. Everyone could not help but turn their heads and look in the direction of the sound. They saw Zhou Xiaoduo taking out his cell phone in a hurry. That everyone's expression was strange. Zhuo's cell phone ringtone was really different. Zhou Xiaoduo pretended to be calm and looked at it. It was an unknown number, but to hide the awkwardness he picked it up. Hello, who is this? Where are you? Send me your location. A calm voice came from the phone. It was this voice. It was only a few words, but the voice was very familiar. However, this familiar voice made Zhou Xiaoduo fall into a state of daze. He was as stiff as a statue on the spot. In fact, Zhou Xiaoduo was not the only one who fell into a state of daze. Li Chenglong, Wan Li Xiao, Long Yuxing, Li Changming, Yu Moyan, and the others who were about to leave fell into a frozen atmosphere because of this voice. Suddenly, their eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. They were full of hope, but they were afraid that it was just a dream. They could not believe it, and did not dare to move. That was surprise, expectation, and ecstasy. However, they were also nervous, afraid that they would disturb this moment of joy. You are Teacher Qin? Qin Fangyang? Zhou Xiaoduo's voice was already trembling and out of tune as he asked. Nonsense. Don't tell me you can't recognize my voice? You are a bastard who deceives your teacher. An angry rebuke came from the phone. However, it could be heard that the person on the other side was just trying to control his emotions. It was all fake. The voice on the other side was also trembling. It was just that he took the initiative to call and had already made mental assumptions. Therefore, he appeared to be relatively calm. In fact, who could not know the truth in what he was thinking? Oh. Zhou Xiaoduo and the others jumped up together. Wahahaha. Ha ha ha. Zhou Xiaoduo spun in circles. Old Qin is not dead. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Teacher Qin is not dead. Ha ha ha. As expected, good people do not live long. Old Qin is actually not dead. Li Chenglong grabbed Xiang Chong and started beating him up. Oh. Teacher Qin is not dead. Zhang Xuejuan dragged Xiang Chong out in dissatisfaction. You are so excited. Why are you beating Xiang Chong? Over here, the group of people danced wildly and cried excitedly. On the other side, Qin Fangyang's eyes were also red. He resisted the urge to sob and said angrily, What are you shouting for? Can you be more serious? Hurry up. Immediately. Zhou Xiaoduo waved his hand and shouted, Silence. I am going to send our positions to Teacher Qin now. Everyone stand at attention. Oh. Li Chenglong and the others ignored him and continued to dance wildly. Zhou Xiaoduo clumsily sent their positions. In his hurry, he actually typed the wrong word. He deleted it and typed it again. As he typed, he screamed, Oh, I cried for nothing. How are you going to pay for this? My tears are very valuable. That's right. 10 minutes later, Qin Fangyang stood proudly in front of the door of the small courtyard with the unwilling Zhu Yan. Zhu Yan was still complaining. I am not full yet. Qin Fangyang turned a deaf ear. Full. You are thinking too much. With your size full. Ha ha ha. When the various races return, you can go to the battlefield to eat. Sensing Qin Fangyang's arrival, the door opened suddenly. Immediately, a few guys rushed out like a tide. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Then, they hung all over Qin Fangyang's body. Even though Qin Fangyang's body was tall, he suddenly became bloated. It was as if his body was covered with koalas. One was hanging from his shoulders, his neck, his waist, his 2 legs, and the last one was hanging on his back. Come down, all of you come down. Qin Fangyang's face darkened, and he pretended to be very unhappy. You are all so big. What a scandal. You are a joke. It is your business to be laughed at, but don't drag me down. No, we are not going down. Who told you to scare us? Oh. After a long time, Swordsmanship and the rest finally got down from Qin Fangyang's body and surrounded him with red eyes. From time to time, they would touch his hands and arms, afraid that this was just a dream. They were even more afraid that they would disturb this dream, causing it to end in a single day and turn into nothing. Qin Fangyang was also emotional, but he still had to maintain his image and maintain the elegant temperament of a teacher. The group entered the living room and sat down. Qin Fangyang first greeted Wang Lingyun very politely, then began to talk. How did it go? Qin Fangyang asked. It went very smoothly. The one who spoke was not Swordsmanship, but Li Chenglong. Li Chenglong was an expert when it came to retelling the story. In just a short while, he had already straightened out everything from the beginning. Everything was clearly organized and linked together. We didn't know about this at first. It was Zwa. After we came. First then and then. Finally, Li Chenglong said confidently, Teacher Qin, don't worry. None of the Wang family members will escape. Qin Fangyang pondered for a moment. You guys also caused the storm on the internet. During this period of time, the condemnation on the internet did not show any signs of stopping. Instead, it became more and more intense. As for the Wang family at the beginning, they still fought back and struggled. Now even their only counterattack had stopped. They had completely given up. Moreover, the most surprising thing was that the Wang family's internet company had somehow leaked the location of their office. Some angry students rushed in and directly destroyed the entire building. All the perpetrators were arrested and fined 5,000 astral souls coins each. After 6 hours of education, they were released. When a certain tycoon found out about this, he immediately posted on the internet, I will pay for the fine. Suddenly, I will pay for it. These 3 words flooded the internet. Qin Fangyang listened, and was originally filled with anger. Later, he was filled with gratification and satisfaction. These are my students. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.